Welcome, everybody. So this is to the November 3rd, to the November 3rd Utility Advisory Committee. I guess we will start off with calling the meeting to order, which we're doing, and then we'll do roll call. I was informed that Dan Combs had a family emergency, so he will not be able to make it today. So hopefully everything is going well with him. So can I guess, Greg Todd? Here. Marty Rye? Here. Larry Carr here. Ned Shamu? Here. Sorry. Eileen Wilkinson? Here. Howard here. Thank you. Okay, so everybody is here except for Dan Combs. So we have one absentee. So we will open up the first comment period, which to remind everybody, this is only related to the items that are on the agenda. So if anybody is interested in discussing the agenda items, do we have the phone number? I guess just, so the number is 702-589-9629. We'll give just a minute or so to check it. Again, the number is 702-589-9629. Let's see, I guess as we're waiting, is there anything that was emailed? Okay. So I forget, is there another, is it emailed or is there another, just the phone and the email? Okay, I was thinking there was a third aspect. Okay, I think we've given enough time and we will have an end of the comment, with another comment period at the end of the meeting if there's anything that is requested. Okay, moving on to the agenda. Does anybody have any comments, amendments, or anything on the agenda? Is there any reason to move any of the agenda items around? So my understanding is finance will not be here as far as the CAFR goes?
That is correct.
Okay, so is there anything that would, I guess we're going to be doing, the first three items are pretty much dealing with infrastructure and stuff, so Marvis and Mike, I guess, so anything if there's anything we can do to reduce their time if they want to, but otherwise I think we're in order. But is there any reason to rearrange things?
No, I believe items 2 and 3 will need their expertise, and then after that we'll be able to address everything, so the order's fine with us.
Okay. So again, anybody on committee have anything, concerns?
No.
Comments or anything? Okay. Okey-doke. I guess we will then go to the goals. Do we have the package on the slides? Thank you. So I guess I'll turn it to you then, Keegan.
So I'm still trying to fill in dates with for the tentative timeline column. But for the goal number 1 is reviewing the annual CIP, which we'll do on item number 3 today. One thing I put in the timeline is to provide the calendar for the process of approval of CIP and the O&M budget. So I will provide that calendar. I actually added it to our deliverables tracker. I just penciled it in to make sure I get that calendar to you. One thing that we've discussed for this goal The schedule for CIP is typically, we'll take it to council in October and then again in November for more revision, and if possible, get a tentative approval in November. If not, we always can push it to December. With our time constraints, I know that you guys want to provide some sort of report to council with your recommendations. So I made the suggestion that when I go to council with the CIP on the 9th and then again on the 23rd, that when I do ask them for tentative approval, I can ask them for just the general fund portion, and state that we're still working on a report with recommendations, and that can happen at a later time. The reason we try to have the CIP approved in the fall is that helps with the O&M side of the budget. But knowing that we're fairly close on our CIP portion of it, besides the report and some tweaks that we're going to make, Finance will be comfortable with moving forward with the O&M, and when we're comfortable with our report, then we can present that to the council and make our recommendations, and then I can ask for tentative approval on the utility side of the CIP. So is there any questions on that first goal?
Did you want to discuss the report in this agenda item or in the 5-year agenda item?
Either place is fine with me. Do we want to wait until after we discuss CIP and?
As long as either agenda item is okay to discuss it, then
Yeah.
maybe we want to discuss it after I guess bring it up that we are depending. Now, Greg, are you still okay with doing the major portion of the report?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. You know, it's just a matter of putting it on paper and then tweaking it, checking it for spelling, and then submitting it in a timely manner.
No, if you want, I can help you with review of the document stuff.
I've done a few of them for us, so I'm getting pretty good at it.
But there's just for the one extra person, I can help.
Yeah, the biggest thing is making sure that the deliverables and all the tracking numbers and everything are right. Because we keep changing the names of the projects, we have to make sure we're going back to our number system to get the projects in proper alignment. There's been some consolidation on stuff, and we have to note that.
Okay. Yeah, I think after so I think in item 3, then when we talk about it, it'd be good to sort of lay out. I think we can use last year's report as a starting point, but I think there's some other things we need to discuss, and it'll probably feather in better with when we start talking about the items.
Yep, that works.
Thank you.
Moving on to goal number 2, the annual review of water, sewer, electric, landfill revenue requirements. One of the big hurdles we were waiting for was the CAFR, or the financial report, that is in your packet, and that is, I can't remember the item number 6, so we can discuss that at that time, or if there's any other questions about this goal, what the next steps you'd like to see, I'm happy to discuss it right now.
I think the audit would be good to go ahead and go on 6. So,
okay.
Does anybody else have any comments about that early? Okay.
Okay. And then number 3, the development of the water conservation plans and programs. We do have an agenda item for that, so we can go into greater detail on that.
Can we go back to the bottom? So we've got, back to number 2. So we do have the 5-year plan, the next fiscal budget, and the rate revenue. So you have over on the side the staff plans to do the update on late fall. So taking the audited information and update it. And then, so is that going to be, is that a 2-stage process, do you know? Because basically my understanding, they were going to fill in the Raftillis document, but also then there was there's also a breakdown, I guess, based on Munis that would have everything broken down in the different categories, salaries, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so the first step that finance is working on right now, now that the CAFR's done, is they're inputting all the numbers into the rate study. And from there, once they get all those numbers in, updated, they'll be able to start plugging in the projects that we're discussing in the years that we're proposing to make sure that it doesn't has any impact to the financials in outlying years. So that's what they're working on right now. I don't have an update on when that'll be done, but I know that is one of their top priorities right now.
Okay, so actually, I don't know if it's a major issue, but does the 5-year and the next budget plan need to be reversed? We definitely need the 5-year plan before we do the rate review, but I'm assuming the next step is the fiscal year 2023 budget.
And yeah, so the fiscal year 23 budget will start this spring. All the directors usually get the 23 information right before Christmas or right after Christmas. And then that's when we start doing our requests for what we want to have money for next year. And I believe that's what finance makes that 5-year budget plan out of after that's completed. So I think the second bullet would really be in line with the last bullet or after the last bullet.
Sorry, the second bullet would be, well, you need that before you do rate review. You have to have, so make sure I'm understanding correctly. So we need to understand the audit, then we need to, so whether you put, so probably the next fiscal year budget would be something we need to work with. And then we need the 5-year plan and the rate review. Now so again, trying to understand our timeline. When is something, okay, so staff will present updated financial plan to city council with USC comments. So when is it that you're gonna look for our feedback on the fiscal year 2023 budget?
As soon as finance releases that information, I can get that out to the UAC in terms of the utility budgets and give you guys a chance to review it for a while, and I'll work with the supervisors on what requests they're asking for, and then, so that would probably be January at the very earliest. February might actually fit in better, but that'll, like I said, it all depends on when finance has all the spreadsheets compiled, which I know is a lot of work.
But if I remember correctly, last year, I think you were asking for information by March. Is that correct?
March is usually when they have their first workshop with council, and then they don't actually go to an official council meeting until April. That's usually the timeline for it. So if I get my hands on it right before Christmas, then I can email it out, and then we could talk about it in January.
That'd be, the earlier we can at least start talking about it and see it, then that's helpful. I guess we just, if it's possible, if we move forward with you guys, I think that would be helpful. Then we can understand what's going on and have better input instead of having 1 month when we only meet once a month. And then we can all talk about it each month in each meeting. That'd be helpful. So, okay, I appreciate it.
Okay, so yeah, as soon as I get that, we can email that out, and I would suggest the December meeting, we put it on the agenda for January, knowing that we should get it. It might only give you guys a week to take a look at it before we meet in January, depending on when we set the meeting for January, but it'll at least get us started in that process.
No, I appreciate it. I think the earliest, at least we can see it, then that's helpful.
Okay. And I'll put that on the deliverables tracker too.
Thank you. That'd be great.
Okay. So if we're done with 2, so 3 is the water conservation. We do have an agenda item on that. I haven't put any dates on here. I just know that we need to discuss it. I'm discussing it with council. I'm discussing it with staff, SNWA, the Parks and Rec. So there's a lot of moving parts with this, but I think as a group we need to decide on when we want to come up with our plan and our recommendations. We started working on that PowerPoint presentation. It just, with CIP coming up, it's kind of slid on the back burner, but it's still there. We know we need to give you guys a presentation on what ideas we have, and then we could go from there.
So you have some, well, I guess we can talk about it at the water conservation, because there are some items that are out in the public right now. And I guess that's going to feed into what you're currently doing then come to us, if I'm assuming correctly.
Yep.
Okay.
And then the last one is the integrated resource plan and rooftop solar. we do have an item on that, and I have a little bit of information to provide. There was a little bit in your backup.
Okay, Holly, can you move forward one? Thank you.
It froze up.
Thank you.
So the goals we have right now is present the IRP to the UAC in October of '22, the updated one in November to City Council, and then have it complete by December of '22, and that's the deadline. SNWA, I had met with them about, well, I guess I can go into that when we get to the rooftop solar, but that's what the presentation from SNWA, SSEA would be.
Now, is there a chance, so a long time ago it was talked about sort of filling in, start doing a draft of the IRP. So can we have something earlier than the 22nd? Again, if we can start talking about the main components of it would be helpful instead of giving us 1 month to work on it.
Why don't I tentatively put in there March or April for just a rough draft?
That would be great.
Okay.
Yeah.
March, April. So that we can start with a rough draft there and work our way from there.
Okay. And then the solar, okay, so that's going, but do we want a date on that, or is that filled in later or not?
Yeah, that's kind of out of my hands on when that presentation can happen, but as soon as I hear something, I'll confirm with everybody on the committee that it works. Anything else on the goals that we want to discuss?
Yeah, I think so. What I understand you were going to do is add the deliverable tracker to the goals?
Yes, sorry. So did everybody get a copy of that?
Yeah.
This is the tracker that Josh had created for us. We can add a priority level, estimated delivery date, any notes we want to add, and then each meeting I'll just bring a copy of it and I'll just pencil in that stuff that is brought up during the meeting. And then I'll add it to Josh or I will add it to the official one and send it out.
Okay. Yeah, I believe that I have to go back, and I haven't had time to do it, go back, look at a lot of the minutes, but I believe there's a lot more than this.
Yep, and if you do have more from previously, like I said, Josh just created this and just put a couple items on there that we would remembered. If there's items from before that you still need, let us know and we'll get it taken care of.
Okay. But yeah, so we put it on the goals, and then we bring the goals up each time. Yep. Because we have time, if there's information to talk about, great. If not, then we don't have to worry about it, but that would be helpful. Yep. Okay. Anything on the tracker or the other goals for anybody?
I do want to mention the notes for the one that I have on there. I know Greg had been asking for the scope of work for the BC TAP to Buchanan project. I emailed that out earlier. If the rest of the committee would like to see that, we can email that out to the whole committee.
Does anybody else in the committee want a copy of that?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, why don't you just email it to everyone then?
Yep, we'll do that.
And then one thing I just want to make sure, I guess, I don't know if it was copied from the time before, it was asked about approval or voted on. And we did that in September. We said that we approve the goals as they were, but it was a living document.
Yep.
So I don't think we need to approve or do any voting again on it, just unless something major comes up that we'd want to do.
Yeah, just any recommendations or any changes that we have, Josh and I will just pencil them in and make sure it gets added for the next meeting.
Okay. And we'll be talking about it later, but since I used the word approval, I guess we have a situation in one of the other agenda items we need to discuss. But I guess in this case, approval was correctly because you were asking for our approval of the document. But I guess we do need to, look at the terminology and make sure which ones. We do not have approval authority. We're an advisory committee, so we just have to be careful on what terminology we use.
Yep. Yeah, we'll just make sure that we've got recommended or discussed, or whatever
Yeah.
fits other than
Suggested.
directed. Suggested, yep.
Yep. So it's just something for all of us to keep track of. So, okay, thank you. I'm sorry, so Keegan, was there anything else on your side for the goals?
Nope.
Okay, great. Okay, so now we'll close out, agenda item number 1 and go to, let's see, is Carol, do we need to move something along? We need the, unless you want to start before Carol gets here, do we have it on the screen that we could start talking about the 2 things? Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, I guess well, why don't we start, and if we can't, is that okay with everybody, so we start and then come back to it if we need to? I think we can do some general ideas, and then if we need to be able to review the document, we might have to come back. Because we have that document and then the percentage and the priority document that we can go over on that. And
Yep.
that's gonna link into the 5-year plan to see how we're going. So if we can actually, I guess, go through briefly all of them, I would appreciate that if that's doable.
yep.
Okay. Well, if we go down, and I guess it depends how many, I remember where most of the stuff is. And do you have a copy of it? You have a copy of it, Keegan? So I guess we'll go by. Is that okay with everybody for right now?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fine. It's just a general idea, so it at least helps. Appreciate it.
It's the same information that's in the packet, so.
I'd say put it up there, but yeah, go ahead and put it up.
Yeah, if anybody's watching at home, it's the same information that's in the packet, so they'll be able to pull it up on their screen or print it. So, starting with the first one under admin is just the city shop utility admin building refurbish. It's just been an ongoing project with Public Works to do some improvements over at the shops. They're kind of wrapping that up right now. There is quite a bit of improvements that we'd like to have done, but that would be a future project.
Do we have a future project for the admin? I didn't think that was on the.
We don't at this time. When we were first looking at the ARPA funds, the rescue plan funds, we were discussing maybe possibly doing some improvements over there, building another shop of some sort. But with the ARPA funds, it looks like the restrictions on that can only be used for water or wastewater projects. So we might not be able to do any other projects over there.
Yeah, because I think we were still confused on what was going to be out of the admin and what was going to be part of the utilities and everything like that. So, so I guess, this year, unless something comes up later in the budget, we don't plan on having a capital project for fiscal year 23.
Not at this time.
Okay.
Now looking down, first section's electric. We have feeder 63 to substation 3 tie. Where that's one of the projects that's going to be done in-house. If you see on the next one, we have all the percentages of the projects. So this one's going to be like next in line for us to be, or I can't remember if that's next. Might be the feeder 64. Anyways, there's no progress construction-wise on that one. It still needs to be designed. That's another item that we're looking at outsourcing to have a consultant be able to help us out with the design work. We've just been struggling finding somebody that can assist us with that. The feeder 53 is 100%. That's similar to our Arizona Street project that we did for electrical. It was broken out into sections. Feeder 53, this is just one portion of that project. You'll see down below we have the San Felipe to Mendota feeder. That's also a portion of feeder 53. So any money that's left over in the feeder 53 replacement is going to be rolled over into the San Felipe project. And that one is nearing completion on design.
the feeder 64, I'm sorry, or 53?
No, feeder 53.
Okay, just making sure as I was passing the papers, I didn't miss
Yep.
it, sorry about that.
And then feeder 64 is also going to be an in-house design unless we find a consultant, so there's no progress construction-wise.
So this is, so how do we want to do this one first and then go to the percentage, or do we want to go back and forth? Because this is the one that I think is a priority 3, and if we have, because I guess the other thing too is talking about a plan of attack, or lack of a better word,
Yeah.
plan to get done. So maybe as we go through, where is that the best way to talk about it? Because if it doesn't seem that we can get some of this stuff done, then the projects for fiscal year '23 are in jeopardy also.
Yeah. Actually, if we wanted to look at, let me see what sheet it would be on. It's very similar to the one that you guys looked at the meeting that I was gone. It'd be page 12 out of the whole packet, but it says electric CIP as of 8/31/2021. That has a priority order column on there.
Right.
Holly, can we put that same sheet back up, but go to I think it would be the third page? Or was there not a third page? Maybe it was the one I called 2.1.
It's either page 12 or page 11 if you've got the whole. Okay, that's it right there.
Not this one.
No, that's the one you want. Yeah, that's the one we want.
I was going to show you.
Oh, okay, you got something else?
Yep.
Okay, sorry.
Not that. Is that the only page on that PDF? Yeah. Oh.
No, maybe we should just go down the list and then we can come back and sort of look at the priorities, and because you're explaining them, and then we can go back and say that we might have to do something to do. But I guess, is there anything that's been done on a plan? Has there anything been written out or something to sort of get a warm and fuzzy on how we might move forward in the next year or so?
We have, well, when we get that priority sheet pulled up, it'll show you what priority that we're thinking that everything needs to be done in. Right now, our biggest hurdle is getting projects designed.
Well, we talked, so maybe I misunderstand, we talked about what plan, so like I said, so just, we've got almost 15 projects still left to go for this year. And we only did 2 last year.
Larry,
Go ahead, Greg.
page 11 of the packet has the City of Boulder City Utility Fund Capital Project Status Report as of 10/26/21. That would be the most current one to look at.
That's the one I was discussing. You'll see the yellow at the top. That's the priority order. I don't know if you guys have the packet in front of you, but that's where it says priority 1, or if the project's closed, priority 2. And that's the same list of projects that were on the previous sheets.
Okay, so the yellow is things that you're hoping to get done or need to get done, or?
No, the yellow is things that have been updated. The yellow at the top is telling us what order these projects need to be done in. Or do you have a copy of that? No, that's something different.
Yeah, I think it's also the one before that, I think, is what we also want to look at. No, the other one. No, keep down. I thought it was page 11. I think Greg is right. What's page, so is that, well, the one should be right below that one. Okay, keep going. Where did it go? No, is that this one or last year? This is last month, not this month. Yeah. Yeah, this is last month.
Turn on some lights or something.
So the one that says in-house design priority 2, the very top one,
Uh-huh.
that is the feeder 63 to substation 3 tie. So, sorry, I need to speak up. So that is going to be the next project when our staff finishes the second one in yellow, it says in-house design priority 1. That's the San Felipe to Mendota. And that's the one he's almost done designing. We're gonna probably be taking a look at that here real soon, doing our first draft review of it. Knowing the quality of work that's been put out before, it's not gonna take too many drafts to get that finalized. So as soon as he's done with that, he's gonna jump to the in-house design priority 2, which is the feeder 63 to substation 3 tie. That's why they both have a priority 1, meaning they both need to happen, but there's an order of which one needs to be designed first.
Do you have an idea of like a ballpark date, like almost done? Does that mean like the second coming?
Yeah,
Or does that mean
we're
Christmas?
anticipating having it, all the bid document specs, everything done this calendar year and having it bid out before Christmas.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's the other sheet that was shown, your priority, the percentage sheet.
Yep.
had
Yeah,
that,
we have
so.
1231 on there is,
And I forget, what is, so, well, it's anytime, so that one most likely then will not be completed in fiscal year '22. So it would be extended into '23.
Marvis, is that probably a 6-month project for them? So there's a chance it'll be done this summer. So it would be done this fiscal year.
Well, no, next summer, which would be next, yeah. 'cause
Yeah, it'd be
well, if you-
June of '22 would give them 6 months.
Right, no, but summer starts in June, and then fiscal '23 will be July, so, June would be 6 months out, and if we go to bid basically, it's not gonna happen during the holiday. So you're gonna have it, most likely you're gonna be in process of trying to figure it out in January.
We'll probably take it to council in February, so that'd give them 4 months if we're gonna finish it this fiscal year, but, the fiscal years, I know we wanna see projects come off this list, but if the project takes till July or August, if we don't get it, construction started till March, yeah, it'll still be on the list, but we can show that it's closed and move it down to the bottom.
No, I understand that, I'm not
Yep.
trying to be a hard,
Yep.
but I guess what I'm saying is though it's still, everything gets shifted, and
Yep.
that's why, when we get to the '23, as we show things shift,
Yep.
and we got two constructions in '23, and are they gonna get done? So that's, I guess, what I'm looking to, so it's, I understand we're not that far into fiscal year '23 with this project if everything goes well.
Yeah.
I understand that, but we still got other things that have to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so then you've got your next yellow item, I guess, is that?
Yeah, the in-house design priority 3 must be done before the cutover. That one is, that's the Red Mountain. That's the
Okay.
one, it's not gonna take very much design to get that one out. It's more of just a site plan and a scope of work. There's a fraction of the poles that need to be replaced that we've identified, and then put new conduit, and then they're putting fiber on that too, correct, Marvis? Yeah, and then installing fiber. So we're anticipating having that one out to bid here in the very near future also.
Okay, so make sure that, so we're looking at the two different aspects here. Right now, what you're doing is you're saying 1, 2, and 3, you're talking really an order.
Yep.
In this document.
Yep.
In the other document, when you have the priorities, you're saying this is what we're saying has to be done beforehand, but it's almost, I don't know, semantics, I understand, but priority in this case is almost like an order.
Yep.
Order 1, order 2, order 3, because this one's not a priority 3 that you're saying has to be done for court. It's a priority 1, but it's gonna be done in third succession.
It'll be the third one that we do, yep.
Yeah, okay. So then are we still in electric, or is the other one in water?
No, all of these ones that are electric that we're
Okay,
looking at.
good. Okay, so then, okay, I'm sorry, continue.
Back to, if I can ask, on the feeder 63 to substation 3 tie, so that one, any idea on how long that design would take? Is it 2 months, 3 months, 4 months?
I'm not exactly sure. But
A year?
no,
Just ballparking?
yeah, a few months is what it would
few months,
take.
okay.
Staff has been working overtime, trying to get these projects sped up, in addition to the other duties, but we've been primarily having them focus just on designing these utility projects. It's my goal to see if we can find a consultant that's somewhat local to be able to assist him, because I can't clone him even though I want to. And then the feeder 64 to Temple Rock reroute, that's a lower priority and a priority of 4. So we're going to try to tackle all of these priority 1s. You'll see down a couple lines, it's not highlighted in yellow, but it says ongoing, no effect on the 4 kV conversion. That's the BC tap. That one, they still on track to finish right around Christmas time, Marvis, the BC tap to Buchanan? Yep. But yeah, that priority 4 does need to happen. We'll have to do the design for that, but that's much lower on the priority list. And then looking down at circuit 45, 61 to 62 is the one that says in-house design priority 4. These are just reliability improvements. And like it says there in the highlighted, can be done after or with the cutover. And that's the same thing. Then the very next one is feeder 63 to 64. A lot of these I could see really picking up pace if I do find a consultant that's capable of helping us out with this design. And that's what I'm in the process of trying to find.
Okay, yeah, because I guess we did skip over, but if I'm looking at a lot of the white stuff, it says it has to be done with cutover. And right now, we're looking at trying to do the cutover in 2024.
Yep, and that's, yeah, I was just doing the yellow highlighted. Some of those priority 2s, you'll see that we have 2 of them that are closed out, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4 of them are priority 2. Those are saying must be done before the cutover. Those are, which is this one? More of the 4 kV. That's the work that PAR has been helping us out with, the contract services. Feeder 14 to 24, Red Mountain we discussed. And then the feeder Arizona Street is the last number 2 priority. That's the one that is going to be done here in the next month or 2. They said I think they had about 4 weeks left of work to do, and they just started this week.
Okay, so I guess looking at the one list here I'm not saying it might be different from this one, but if I'm understanding correctly, maybe if we can go to the one that has the priorities on it, it might help, or maybe you've got it here, but we sort of went over it, but I think somewhat we talked about possibly putting feeder 64 off if we had to put that on hold. So if we decide that, I think because we're going to get to 2023 and we have two constructions projects. So if those are key to be done before the cutover, then some of these, because I can't remember, I think you said 64, feeder 64 doesn't have to be done before the cutover, is that correct?
Yeah, that can be done after or with the cutover, so that's why it is a priority 4. It doesn't need to happen right now that I'm aware of. You agree with that, Marvis? The feeder 64 to Temple Rock? Correct.
So maybe maybe that's one thing we might want to, is that something to go now, is to go back to that priority sheet? I think she did have it up earlier. And then we can go through the 4s and see if we need to put anything on hold. Like I said, we've got 15 projects. You're gonna have 2, you've got 2 new ones. So I guess if we put in a report that these 2 construction projects in 23 are critical, they have to be done, then we'd also, I think they're asking us, can it be done? That's what I think I understood last year.
Yep.
And so if we've got 15 projects and 2 new ones, I don't see how we can honestly say they're gonna get done.
Yeah, we have this one, the feeder 64 to Temple Rock is the priority number 4. And then we have circuit 45, 61, 62, and circuit 63, 64 are both priority 5s. Those can be done after the cutover. So I can see those essentially moving to the bottom of the list. And then the ones that need to happen next year, those are, as you'll see later on, those are priority ones.
Yeah, so I guess how do we best go about, I guess maybe highlighting it this way, so you've got your 1, 2, 3 and stuff like that. To say we're gonna do it in this order, so then you can say, if I'm looking at this right, you'd have 6 or 7 items that really need to be done. We've got, if it's 6 items, you have nine other items that aren't gonna get done.
Yep.
We've only talked about 3 or 4, so we've still got some of these other ones. I guess that's what we're trying to do at.
I think what I'd like to do, I know it doesn't help us right this minute, but take every one of these projects that we have on the list, minus, like, you'll see at the bottom, the capital equipment purchase, meter replacement, pole replacement programs, those are kind of beside the point. But see all of these reconductor feeder projects on one list, and we can put the fiscal year 23 on that same list. And similar to what we have here, priority 1, 2, 3, just put them in order. This has to be done before this one has to be done before this one. I think that would be most beneficial for you guys to see, okay, all these ones that say 1 have to be done before 2. All these 2s have to be done before 3.
Yeah, and I think as far as the report goes, Greg, that would be helpful. So then that would be something we'd show to the council, is that this is the priority.
Yep.
This is what this is what's being suggested this is what's being asked to be done in 23, and we believe it needs to happen. So we'll get to that, but that.
It's a good idea.
Marvis, did you have any thoughts on that?
He's giggling back there.
I guess I'm confused, because we're looking at the 4 kV project. That's a project in and of itself, we understand that. The other projects that we're trying to move for priority 4, 5, or whatever they are, they can work in conjunction. They have absolutely nothing to do with each other. So the issue is, it's a design issue. It's not a construction issue, it's a design issue. So whether it be 45 to 2161, that's a project in and of itself. It could be done at the same time that the 4 kV is being done, if we can get it designed. And so while we're pushing all these things around, to me, it's not making any sense, because the priorities are the priorities. The 4 kV project obviously is the one that is the highest priority, because we are trying to cut the system over. But the other projects, which are reliability deals, also need to be done. We have a design problem. That's the issue. So I'm confused.
It's not a matter of confusion. It's a matter of we're not identifying that we have a design bottleneck. None of this documentation shows that we're in design bottleneck, okay? So, no, I'm looking at the electrical CIP 83121, that's what it's dated, and all the yellow highlights in the design order. It just says in-house design. It doesn't say design not able to be done at this point in time. Because what happens is we keep carrying these projects forward, and then as a committee, we've got to rebalance the capital budget and the 5-year capital plan to keep the money flowing into that project through these next years.
Well, Mr. Gregg, I have to disagree, because Mr. Keegan has said it multiple times. Dennis has said it multiple times. We have a problem getting them designed. That has been said multiple times.
But we've already got design consultants on staff, like the ones that worked on the Boulder City tap project, the one that did the connection between substation 6 and 3. That was designed by an outside company on our behalf. We paid them $100,000 for that one, by the way. We didn't get $100,000 worth of work, because that's where I got involved in this thing. Just after you got hired in, they had a design on that a few years later, and I got handed the documents from Scott.
That was 15 years ago.
I know, but do you realize that the same people we're going to get help with design are doing the same things again?
We have to use who's out there, sir.
Yeah, but I thought we had to deal with the Clark County and the governmental service agencies to have electrical design contractors that we could piggyback on.
Not to my knowledge.
No.
Okay, well, that was what was told when Dennis was here, that we were going in to go parties with another group, county or whatever it was, to use their design services and see if we could get on their design program schedule.
The only agreement that we have is with CRC for the Buchanan to the tap. We're using their services. That's the only project. They're overseeing that project. That's the only one. And they are doing what we are paying them to do, or an agreement to do. That's the only one.
Okay,
So we can't utilize them for any other electrical design?
That I don't know. We'd have to look at that, but as of this time right now, that's not on the table.
No, I understand that, but what I'm saying is we're having problems with staffing on the outside blue-collar side of the house. We're having trouble with the engineering, the white-collar side of the house. And we keep having to push these projects out because we've got no design. Once we get design, now we can go to work on it.
Absolutely.
But the thing is we're too blocked. And now we're talking about rolling these numbers and rolling them down and rolling them over to where they go to another year. They're not critical, but they're the wish project, the wish list. And I understand what the wish list is. We all wish for a lot of things, but we don't always get it. I'm just trying to figure out where the bottleneck is, where the log is in the river, and we can pull the log out and get going.
And that's what Mr. Keegan, Mr. Dennis prior to are trying to address. They're reaching out to other consultant firms. They're reaching out to engineering firms to see if we can get some help designing. Right now, the one person he has designed is doing a smash-up job. But again, he's only
Yeah,
one person.
That's one person. You can't run them into the ground.
Exactly.
Yeah. But that's all I'm trying to figure out is if there's another avenue or another way we can get in here and start getting some of this stuff out because, you know, you and I are both in the same boat. We've done the work, we've done the job, but the thing is we need the designs.
Yes, sir.
You know, and there's a lot of engineers that used to design and they're now retired. And even in my group where I used to work. So, you know, there has to be somebody out there that can help us. Maybe we're just not casting a wide enough net. Thank you.
You know, it looks like what we probably need to do is really evaluate just how critical some of these are, and then just try to get what's most important. I guess, are you saying that probably the 4 to 12 kV is the most number one priority right now?
Absolutely.
So maybe we need to concentrate on it, and we can take a look at some of these others that are not related to that, but they have issues, and see if there can be Band-Aids put on those to at least buy us a couple, 3 years or something. I hate to do that, but I mean, if that's where we're at, that's where we're at, possibly.
And I understand that, but unfortunately, that's what got us where we are now. That we're behind the 8 ball on a lot of these projects. If like the 64 to 63 tie, if we lose a portion of that, we're going to lose half of Hemingway Valley down there, and no way to pick it up. So that's what we're trying to remedy and try to get ahead of it. But again, it still falls on design. We still have to get the designs out and then get it out to bid.
Go ahead, Greg.
I just come up with another idea. Power Electric, we're doing a lot of work with. They have a sister company called Quanta Utility Engineering Services. Mm-hmm. Can we hire them?
We're talking to them because that's who designed the Buchanan to Tap. That's a partner job. It's a design build.
Yeah.
And they are looking at to see if they have a distribution area to do what we have asked them about that, and they are looking into it. Yes.
Okay, well, that would be another way to do it. You know, and I know some other engineering services out there that I've dealt with over the years. I'd probably just take and drop a dime and have them call in and do basically look at a prospectus and see what they can do. Not affiliated with them, but I know them by reputation in the past.
I'd be happy to talk to anybody at this point.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I guess, so there is a misunderstanding. First off, we're not saying what you have to do. We're just trying to understand what's going on, and we're trying to suggest things. That's what we're trying to do. So we're still trying to get better, understand the facts more so we can advise. That's what we're trying to do.
Okay.
But what I'm seeing is, again, I'm repeating myself, but I see 15 projects. We've got at least 2 more construction projects that are going to happen. Some of the projects, there might be less than 15 because some of these will fall off relatively quickly, but we still have a lot of projects that have to be done. So the thing is that if we have so I guess make sure that I'm understanding it correctly. We have a design bottleneck, okay? So that is true, it has been discussed and stuff, but it's a bottleneck.
Correct.
We can't move forward with that project until the design is done. So I'm all for going parallel, or moving several projects at one time, whatever can be done. So that's not what we're saying. We're not saying you have to stop this and put this on the back burner, unless we can't get it done. If we can't get to it, design work. So if we've got one person and then one agency that can design it for us, then how do we go forward with, let's just say even 10 projects? How do we go forward with 10 projects in the future? And if you're saying, okay, you want the cutover done in 2024, And that's the other thing that I guess when we're advising the city council is they're saying, okay, first off, does this have to be done? Second off, can it be done? Well, if we got a design bottleneck, we can't put in our report that, yes, we believe it can be done because it's not being done. So that's, I guess, we're just trying to figure out how do we all work together to figure out a plan to get it done? And so if we have to put some of these off, what's less critical? So if 64 is a critical, you tell us. We don't, these diagrams, these definitions that are put into these backup doesn't tell us what's a priority. It doesn't tell us that what's going on. It doesn't tell us per year. 1 year is design, 1 year is construction, 1 year is the replacement. It gives us a little information, but I can't go out of this definition and tell the council, yes, it has to be done. There's not enough information here. So we're all a little hot. We're all trying to figure out how to do it. That's all. We're all trying to do what's good for the city. That's what we're here to do. So nobody's trying to point any fingers or saying something like that. We're just asking for more facts and trying to figure out. So with the bottleneck, what would you suggest? If we can't get these designed, what do we do?
We keep making phone calls till we can get people to help us with the design.
But I guess what I'm hearing the council saying is if we just keep stacking the capital projects on top of each other and we're not getting it done, if I'm understanding correctly, they don't think it doesn't make sense to approve it for that year. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
And so, go ahead, Ned.
Well, I'm just wondering if there is no way we can even prioritize at that. I mean, there are some of these parallel projects that are, I'm sure, more important than others, and maybe they're not in the list in the right order, but to pick number one and just concentrate on getting that done, and then we've got PAR working on 4 kV conversion, don't we?
Yes, sir.
So keep them doing what they're doing, but then if we can pick some of the more critical ones that, yeah, if they do fail, we're in a bottleneck. That's the problem. Get those out of the way first, and then there are some of these others I look at that are kind of nice to have, but maybe not as critical as some of the others. And I'm just saying maybe get the most critical to the top and work on those no matter what it takes to get it done.
Yes, and that's kind of what the priorities that we're
That's what it looks like,
considerably working on. You know, again, taking to consideration, working with Mr. Keegan and Joshua, taking into consideration if we do have some type of failure or emergency, how can we prioritize getting that picked back up?
Yeah.
So, again, some of these we have manipulated and massaged a little bit, but this is basically, you know, not only just reliability, but it's also projecting to the future, you know, what we have to do.
Sure.
Obviously, the 4 kV, because our 4 kV substations are antiquated, can't get parts to fix them, so we have to get those out of the system as soon as possible.
Right.
But that being said, we also have serious issues with our 12 kV system that has not been addressed in a long time.
Right.
That we're trying to address as well.
Yeah, I understand. And it's not easy. I get it. And you've got a tough job. I appreciate that very much.
We're not trying to make the job harder. We're not trying to do that. We're just trying to understand. And again, like I said, we're just trying to understand how to make our advisement is all. But I think how we started the conversation was that Keegan was going to reorder this, and I think if I understand all, that's a good place to start, is it not?
Yes.
Yeah, and what I envision, to elaborate on that, right now we have 3 different groups on that spreadsheet that was up. We have the 4 kV to 12 kV. We have other projects that can run congruent with it. And then the third one is the materials and equipment, like the meter replacement, pole replacement. So we can prioritize them in those 3 different groups, knowing that they can run side by side. But I'll figure out a way to make it so it's easy to understand of, okay, this one's a priority 1A for 4 kV, and then we can have a priority 1 for the other projects. That'll be 1B, or however it's going to make it easy to read. So we'll see that we have priority for all of 4 kV, priority for the other projects, and then in working with Marvis, we can figure out, okay, these 3 4 kV need to happen over any other project on our list. We can somehow we'll make that so you guys can read that and understand it, and then we can discuss that.
Yeah, I think that's where we're trying to go, Marvis. We weren't saying drop everything. We were just trying to go with the priority listing. So did I misunderstand? Because I think you were saying we wanted to switch a lot of things out, and we were just trying to figure out how do we get it done and how do we keep moving forward.
Okay.
So we're not saying, and we're definitely not saying, you know, to stop things that are critical. We're definitely not. We've talked about at times of what can run to failure and what cannot. And that's one way, I guess, and that would be, I'm sure, how you've prioritized things. And that's one thing we can look at. If it can be run to failure, then as much as we don't want to do that, if we can't get it designed, you've got all these projects and you can only get 5 of the projects done out of 10, how do we do it? And that's what we're saying. That's what we're saying.
Like I said, and that is the philosophy that we try to employ here, is that we try to drag things out as much as possible. And like I said, I'm not a proponent of running things to failure, but that's kind of the position we're in right now because of staffing, design, things of that nature. So things have outlived their life expectancy, but they're still holding on, but we're trying to get them before they just give up the ghost. But again, this is where we are. So trying to remedy this. So.
We all totally agree with that. But it's just a matter of logistics of what we can do. So I think with the prioritization and stuff like that, then we can say what's going to happen this year, next year, and possibly even the third year, try to get an understanding so we can put in the report, can this be done? And, you know, is it, or do we need to push it off to 24, the 23 objects? I guess that's part of what I'm getting at. So to get everything done and keep it moving forward, we totally agree with. It's just a matter of what can we do, and so if, you know, if Greg has some ideas and other people have ideas to put something forward, then again, to try to move forward and see if there's other ideas, because I guess, so you've already reached out to CRC then, correct? I know they were just helping with the upper voltage, high voltage, but they don't have any ideas either, except for other solutions?
Not right at this time.
No.
So we'll keep making phone calls.
So, okay.
So let me ask a question here. So we have several design projects. I just want to get this straightened out in my head. We have several design projects. We don't have consultants. We do not have any consultants under contract to do that work. But we're trying to do a certain amount of projects in-house as design as well. Is that the case? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Why, I mean, do we have the staff to design? I guess that's my question. I don't know. Do we have the engineering staff to do that?
We have one.
Yeah, one engineer, one design engineer.
One designer that, like Marv was saying, he's doing a great job, but he's one man.
Right, I mean, is he writing specifications? Is he what's his duties? I mean, is he designing it, specifying?
He's mainly on CAD, doing the design. As soon as he prints out the design for us to review it, he'll start putting the spec book together while we're reviewing. So,
I mean, I know the consultants are gonna be much more costly.
oh yeah.
But do we just have to get the designs done and just get them, you know, maybe we need to allocate the monies that we've allocated for design and then reallocate money for the construction phase. I'm not getting, you know, we gotta get something done somehow. I mean, Greg pointed out, there is a bottleneck. I can't figure out where the bottleneck is from what I'm hearing.
Howard, we admit there's a bottleneck.
But
it's in getting our projects designed, because
the design is the bottleneck,
yes,
right?
yep.
Okay, that's what I was hearing.
Yes.
It's
I just
easy
wanted
to find a
clarify that.
consultant to do a wastewater design for us.
I mean, are there qualified consultants in our area to do the design?
That's what we're having a hard time.
So that's what we're having problems with. So we may have to go to California or some other place to get these folks?
Well,
Is that what I'm hearing?
it's like Mr. Keegan and Mr. Todd said, you know, we're reaching out to the QESs, which is a subset of PAR.
Correct,
quantum.
I understand, but that in a way to me is like the fox guarding the hen house, but I guess my point, that's just my opinion, but the point is, can we put design consulting packages together? I mean, how much trouble is that gonna be? Whose shoulders does that fall under? Do we have?
If we get somebody that can do the design, that's the easy part of getting a scope and fee together, and we can use the funds that are in the CIP to pay for that design.
Correct, okay. Because it just seems to me, we gotta get these designs done.
You know, when I was here doing this several years ago now, but most small utilities would have their own one or two design engineers, and it was the crew would do a lot of the work, and they would have a local contractor dig the trenches, and it was pretty simple. Not a lot of fancy drawings or spec sheets, because the local contractors knew what was going on. But I get the impression that that's changed a lot. And the large utilities have their own kind of design system, and they have a network of engineers, and they're used to doing the same thing over and over and over again, so that's what they use. And that they're not interested in getting involved with a small utility. And so, yeah, we would use utilities like power engineers and others when we had a substation design or a big project transmission line to design, and that's what they would do. But all the local stuff was just done, primarily, I did most of that for the electrical here, but we'd use local contractors to build it. But it's a different world nowadays, and so I understand what you're saying. It's tough.
But
It's not the same.
I understand, maybe you guys can help me out here, but is the work that we want to get done, is it lucrative to a designer to come in and do it, or they just think it's piddly stuff?
We might have to,
That's a, you know, would they want to pick up that type of work?
we might have to package some of these feeder projects together to make it lucrative enough for them to go after it.
Because that the bottleneck with getting consultants is my question. Because I know there's times like that smaller, they look at it like, hey, you know, I don't have the time to give you, if I want to work for you, you're going to pay me premium because you're taking my staff away from larger projects where I can make big money, so.
Yep. Yeah, that's a lot of the times, it's, getting a phone call back is tough at times.
Now, service seems to be very slow on a lot of things
Yeah.
but, all right, it's just really frustrating just to hear all the, these guys seem to have a better handle on it than I do, but I just want to make sure that, so we're stuck into design level. Getting it done in-house is limited because we only have one staff member that's capable of doing all of that work. And then it sounds to me like to get a consultant on board, we'd have to package several projects and make sure they dedicated staff to give us what we needed to do. So, I mean, that becomes another ball of wax too, getting that consultant. Because I guess I don't know of any, I'm not that familiar with the electrical consulting side to pick it up. I'd have to rely on these guys to give me information on that, so. Okay.
So are we still actively recruiting an electrical engineer to come in to do that?
Yep.
And I know even the problem is a lot of universities don't do a lot of power engineering work. They do electronic stuff, but there's not a lot of power engineering unless there's guys that come up through the ranks on a local utility, and that's usually where they come from. But it's hard to recruit those guys. Mm-hmm. And that's where I came from. I basically got started out of high school involved with power engineering and went through school that way and came out of it. But at the time, most of it was going to the electronics at the time. So I understand where you're coming from. It's tough, but yeah, it's just tough. I know.
Is it the level of our system too that is a drawback to these guys? I mean, do they have the staffs that can work on our type of systems? Do they have people like that available?
Well, you have Overton Power, you have Lincoln Power District, you have Valley Electric. Those guys but they have their own design people. I know you guys probably still meet with those managers up there. I can't think of all of them, right? But they might even be willing to lend a hand on some of that kind of stuff if they got extra engineers, or maybe we could recruit one of their engineers.
Ned, I just put out a text to a couple guys I know. I'm doing consulting Power Tech PTE out of Walnut. We have licenses in Nevada, Colorado, and Arizona. I'll check for you, and I'll have you an answer by tomorrow. Three different engineering firms, electrical engineering. You still have to be in contact with the people in the system, and these guys are hungry for work.
Yeah.
So if they'll meet the requirements with what you guys have spec'd out, we'll put you together.
Sounds great.
Okay.
And a lot of times those managers in those utilities I mentioned may have somebody that's come to them and they might know about. They would be happy to, send them our way.
Yep.
Thanks, everyone. So I guess, I did have one question I'm still confused on the pole replacement program. So we've ordered the poles, and is that pretty much, I think it was mentioned last meeting about what the specificity of that requirement is that are they using the pools and can take the money out of that, or that was just, it's not gonna be the money in that fund?
Yeah, we're gonna, order one more shipment of poles because, I guess it's not an issue, but the conflict we run into is, the pole replacement program came about after, the 4 kV project came along and PAR was replacing poles anyway. So we've been trying to tie those two projects together. So, we will, make one more purchase of poles, and then the rest of that money can be diverted to wherever we need it to go, as far as what they say.
Right, so you're just purchasing the pole, and I think what you told last time, I'm just trying to make sure I understand, then you're just taking those poles, and they're gonna be part of the other program, so the money comes out of the other program, not the replacement program?
Correct.
Okay, so just making sure. I think we were thinking that some of that money might offset the other programs, but that's not what's happening. Okay. We're just trying to understand the system and trying to understand the facts, and is what we're trying to get at.
You know, I had, Marvis, I had one comment on the Red Mountain line too.
Yes.
I know that the transformer that used to be fed up there was a 4160 to 2300 delta. And I think the first one we had in there had a dual voltage switch, so it could have been switched to 12 kV, but I understand that transformer failed. It might be worth $5,000 or $6,000 just to buy a transformer that goes directly from 12 kV back to 2300 volt delta to get us over that hump, so you can go ahead and get your 4 kV conversion done, and then go ahead and maybe buy a transformer that's got the dual voltage switch in it, so that you can basically flip the switch when it's time to do it and save having to do all the pole work at this time and string that neutral. It costs $5,000 or $6,000 to buy go to Jerry's Electric and have them build you up a transformer that'll go from 12 kV to 2300, and just change that out and save a project that maybe is going to take the space of something else that's more important. That's just what I'm saying.
Yeah, we're looking at all those options. Again, it's all, like I said, design, and that's part of that, replacing the two trans. We have a 3-phase and a single phase up there, and that's all part of that. We're looking at every option that's out there to remedy that and to quicken that process.
Good, Greg.
On the pole replacement program, isn't some of that money for labor?
We can use it for that, yeah.
Well, it says available budget after the second batch of poles is bought is $770,000. Previously expended was $129,653. CIP approved funds for 2022 is $450,000. So I think some of that money for pole
Yes.
replacement is labor.
It's a standard CIP for labor, for material and labor. Yes,
Right,
sir.
okay.
Yes.
I heard somebody saying it was just material, and
No,
it piqued my interest.
It's yes, standard.
What we'd like to do is, we believe there's going to be about $600,000 excess in that pole replacement, is move that to the 4 kV overhead, basically the work that PAR is doing, because they're installing the poles. Just for the bookkeeping side of it, it would be easier to have it all in that project E1909.
Okay. So was there any other questions on the electrical? Okay, so can we go over the water, I guess, quickly too? Water and then sewer?
Yep. So I'm looking at the project status sheet. So the first one is the water line to Eldorado. Construction's 100% complete on that. The copper service replacement, it's stated at 0%. We just finished up our last FY21 project. We just received the bids for the first FY22 project, so that one's kicking off, I'm guessing in a week or two. That's going to be 36 services. There's 600,000 in there, what we have for this year, and then the future years going out, 600,000 a year. And so we're just putting those projects together in-house and getting them out the door as quickly as possible. So you'll see progress on that pretty soon.
But is that in-house or contractor?
The contractors actually doing the work.
Okay.
We're putting the packages together and bidding them out in-house. It's fairly simple. It's basically a site map with showing the locations of them.
Okay.
That one's been going real smooth. We've been doing that for a while. The next one's the Eldorado Valley Line PRV design. It states that it's on hold. In talking with Mr. No, originally this was put in here for the line that was just installed here in the last 2 years. But the existing line that actually services those solar fields does need PRVs. So we do have money in there that we'd like to install some PRVs or at least start the design for that existing line.
So then with that, since it's already in Munis, can we rename it or do something to make it clear? Because Greg had recommended, I think, that we name the two lines separately.
I can check on that, or maybe we can make something in the notes saying this is for the existing 14-inch or 16, I can't remember. 16-inch? 14, yeah.
Yeah, that would be helpful, just so so it's not confusing and we understand which project's being done.
Yep, we can notate that.
So question on that line again, was that the reason you need the PRVs now is because you're drawing water out of the bottom of the valley and not the upper end where you're sending it to?
I think Mike can probably clarify this, but I think we've needed PRVs all the time. It's just now we're starting to see the effects of not having anything on it because we're starting to have some leaks in the
failures on the
valves.
line, leaks and stuff like that, okay. I was thinking that maybe it was because now you're starting to draw out of the bottom of the valley where the pressure is going to be greatest when you're pulling it out of the line, but the pipe itself has got problems, is what you're saying, huh?
No problems at this time, but we do have areas where the pressure is close to 200 PSI.
Right, I'm sure that's at the bottom of the valley where you want to pull it out.
Bottom of the valley and then actually before the dry lake bed also kind of fluctuates. But
Right, uh-huh.
yeah, we just need more PRVs.
Because I think when the line was built, there was nothing in the bottom of the valley. You were going all the way to the steam station down there, the steam plant. And
Yes.
you didn't have as much pressure up there, but I can see where the problem is, so.
Yeah.
So I think it really is necessary, and obviously, so.
Yeah, I don't want Mike or his guys working out there at 200 PSI or
Right.
more. That's scary.
Yes, it is.
No, it sounds good.
Yep. Rebuild pressure reducing valve, 100%, that one's closed. Install PRV on the A line to the National Park Service. That one's been on hold because we're not sure if we're gonna be able to decommission that line. That's what we'd like to do. We're working with the National Park Service to get them switched over so they can do their own thing. So if we can do that, we wanna look into reallocating those funds so we can convert the Hemingway Valley area over to potable from raw. My understanding that raw line that comes out there, there's quite a bit of corrosion and it's not in good shape. So if we could switch those meters over to potable for the Hemingway Valley, it's needed to be done. So that funding could be reallocated to that. And then we wouldn't have to create a whole new CIP project for FY23 or 24. And then the next two reservoir improvements and replace the 8-inch butterfly valves. We're working on a consultant selection. We're reaching out to them to get a scope and fee. And then the last one is the water meter replacement program. There's 75 grand in the budget. We're waiting to hear back from the feds to see if we got the matching funds from that grant that Josh put together for us. They did give us an initial letter saying you guys got approved, but it looked like there's a few more federal hoops we had to jump through before we actually saw the funds.
Yeah, I thought I saw something in the paper, but then evidently that was misleading.
Yeah, well, Josh and I were both trying to figure out their letter when they mailed it to, or emailed it to us. It says, congratulations, but then down below here's everything else you got to do before you actually see the money. And so it was very misleading. I got all excited and I was about ready to forward it out to our public information officer so she could broadcast it. And I'm like, oh, I better read everything through here. And yeah, it was very deceiving. Yeah. Uh-huh. So any questions on water?
On the reservoir improvements and the 8-inch butterfly valves, says consultant selection, like where are you at that point? Have you gotten bids in? Have you put it out to bid?
We don't have to do bids for that. Last spring, we did a kind of a, how would I call it, industry-wide RFP. So we looked for generic civil engineers that do transportation. We looked for water engineers, just every discipline you can think of. So we have an approved list by city council that we can pick consultants from. So we have identified a couple of them for these projects, and we've reached out, and so we're working on getting scope and fees with these companies.
So do you expect that by the end of the year?
I'll have to follow up. I know our city engineer was working on that, but he's wearing about 12 different hats, as you can expect, and he's trying to scramble as fast as he can go. Again, that comes down to another staffing issue, but I'll follow up with him and see where we're at.
Greg?
One thing on water, on our deliverables tracker, it said how many 8-inch butterfly valves are there? In the capital improvement multi-year plan, it says there's 198 valves, and we're proposing 50 per year. So that might answer that one deliverable tracker question.
Perfect.
That's on the budget book, page 12.
Okay.
Darlene, did you still have any more questions on that water?
No, it's just this was a 2021 budget,
Yeah.
and we're still at like 0. So I'm assuming it won't get done in this fiscal year either and roll over to 23.
I don't have an update on that, but I will find out.
Okay.
But the replacements, we're continuing on into 23 anyway with the butterfly. So we've got, like Greg, I think we're anticipating 50 a year. So I guess if we get started, then are we getting something per year, or are we getting something to go for the whole time? Do you know?
I envision that being similar to our water services. That'd be something that our staff in-house package together and bid those out similarly to what we're doing for the water services. Where possible, like I was telling at one of the previous meetings for Bermuda Dunes and the other streets in that area, we'd like to do water services and the valves at the same time. So sometimes we can package those projects together, sometimes they'll just be separate.
I understand, but so when you know that so with the copper, you're going per year, you're not trying to get a contractor, or it depends, I guess, if they prove themselves, then is there a reason not to go further on? Because if we have to stop and get another contractor, that just makes it harder.
We'd have to stop and bid out another project. A lot of the times, if you get too big of a project, then it's harder to manage. So we try to make it large enough that it's economical, but not too large that it makes it difficult.
So just to make sure I'm understanding, and I apologize, is that, so the butterfly valve that you're currently working on is, like Eileen said, this is for 21. And do we have some for 22 also? And then we have some for 23. So 21 is going to be that section, that 50, and then we've got to catch up on 22, and then we're going to have to catch up on 23.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess when we get to that, that's another one we might say, do we even say we're not going to budget for 23 because we've already budgeted 22 and we push it off a year?
Yeah.
So maybe we look at that, we'll get to that. And
Get
see.
ourselves caught up. Yep.
That's what we're trying to get our handle on.
Yep, that would make sense.
So thanks, Eileen, for pointing that out. Okay, so I guess then that covers the water. Does anybody else have on the water issue? And if we can go to the sewer, I guess, then?
So the first one is the sanitary sewer rehabilitation. That's repairs going on near Lift Station 1. That work's been being done in-house with our crews. The wastewater treatment plant Headworks upgrade, no construction's being done with that. We're trying to purchase 2 pieces of equipment right now. I was actually talking to Mike about that this morning. I need to follow up with our purchasing manager to see what the status is. Most likely it's on back order like everything else. So I'm working on an update for that. Evaluate Hemingway Valley Sewer. It's saying that a draft model was submitted, but I'm gonna have to look into that one. And then the mobile emergency sewage lift station, mobile emergency, the equipment's installed. Rehab sanitary sewer, working on, that's another one we're working on, consultant selection. Had identified some consultants when Dennis was still here. I need to follow up on that to see where we're at on that status.
Greg?
Hey, I was reading the color sheets on the capital improvement, multi-year plan. We've got the pictures on, two of the documents transposed. I had a note here. One is a storm drain, and the other one's a sewer. The storm drain's over 12 feet in diameter, and they're listed as a sewer rehabilitation project. I don't know if anybody looks at the color pictures, but that caused a little bit of angst.
That's a big sewer line.
Yeah, and then the other one was the actual sewer rehab, which was a good picture of that, and it was more realistic.
Okay.
But I went through and I was looking at all that, and I'm going, wait a second, we got a little picture problem here. So they're showing the one, it's a concrete line culvert, it's got two gentlemen standing down in the hole, and they're 1/3 the size of the pipe, and we don't have any sewer lines that big.
Okay.
So I had a little note to say changing one to the other, but I don't see it. Too many documents, just a little point of thing.
Appreciate it. Next one is lift station 1 improvements. We're waiting on the final system, water or sewer system modeling, and then we'll be able to move forward on that. And where am I at? The contact chamber needs to be designed, and the aeration basins, same situation. Kind of putting those on hold. We don't know where the talks with SNWA is going to go on a possible future treatment plant. So if there's no sense in investing money unless it can be used in the future if we do move forward with a treatment plant. So.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask on that one, and then there's a couple of them, I think, related to sewer plant issues in the 23, so it would be to see where we're standing on that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And if there's no questions, we can move down landfill.
Any questions on the sewer? Okay.
The first one is the air quality permit complete. I know it's not really construction, but 82% complete on that. And then the phasing plan, we did have the final plan received, and then the operator's moving forward. And same thing with the perimeter fencing and the road design. The operator is going to start working on that stuff.
Now, I guess, I'm not sure if I can ask here if this is the proper place or not. The construction funds that are added to, I think it's 50 cents for one and $1 for another, I believe, in the utility bills. One's a construction fund and one's a closeout fund. So the construction funds, that goes towards the construction, or is that the construction at the end of the lifespan?
That I don't know. I can find out.
Okay, because I'm not even sure that I've seen that in the city manager report being increased. Because theoretically it'd be increased each month since it's on a utility bill each month.
Okay.
It'd just be another offset is all, so.
I will look into that.
Appreciate it. Okay, so I guess, did anybody else have any more comment? Anything else on the ongoing? Keegan?
I don't have anything else on the ongoing.
Anybody else?
Nope.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
We're all trying to figure things out here. Okay, the one thing is, I guess, it's probably on the future, but maybe maybe for, maybe it's starting into the 5-year plan might be but, and even Marvis, we talked about, commercial electric meters.
Yep.
Is that something that should be put in? I don't think I see it in the 23. Is that something that should be in the 23, or are we putting it off further out?
No, we're adding that into the 23, it'd be 23 and 24, between 200 and 250,000 for each year for the next 2 years. And that'll include, what was the equipment you were saying it? That's the meter replacement and then some additional stuff that Marvis will update you on.
Right, that'll be our three-phase meters, commercial.
Okay.
Three-phase meters, and also upgrading and replacing antiquated meter cabinets, meter equipment, say at like St. Jude's, those places like at St. Jude's, Red Mountain, and the stables, the corrals. It's all that
okay.
overhead antiquated metering, three-phase metering that we need to get proper gear in there. So, but these two projects over the next 23 and 24, it'll take care of all of those.
Okay, so that's not on our current list.
It's not on the current one, but we'll get that added to it.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Marvis, when we get those commercial meters, are we getting matching CTs?
Yes, we're replacing meters, CTs, and test
Test blocks?
boxes. Yes, sir.
Okay, so, yeah, I just know when I used to do meters, we had to keep all that stuff in one single box.
Yes.
It couldn't be mixed. So that's why I was asking the question. Thank you.
Okay.
Can you repeat, now that's for the three-phase meter replacement you were talking about?
Yep.
And how much are you saying to add for each year?
We're saying about 200 to 250 in that range so I was just gonna probably put 225 for 23, 225 for 24. We'll have a better idea after the first year if we need more or less for the second year.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think that covers most of what we're doing on the ongoing. So go to the 5-year plan. Is there a way you'd like to go about this? So I guess we'll go ahead and close out item number 2 and go to item number 3. So Keegan, I don't know if you had that you'd prefer way to go about this.
In the backup, you'll see the digital, we're calling the digital budget book. It has 23 through 27. It'll list all the projects and then the total for the whole 5 years, and then it jumps to individual project sheets. But I asked Carol to separately prepare these 11 by 17s that show all 5 years for electric, water, wastewater all on one sheet, just to make it easier to view everything. We had well, I shouldn't say we, I wasn't here, I was recovering from shoulder surgery, but you guys had discussed the possible pre-purchase of transformers. So obviously I'm starting with electric, but the pre-purchase of transformers for what did we say? Sub 3 and 4, or was it 3, 4, and 5 are ones that we know that we need to do. And that's where I'm kind of in a holding pattern with finance while they're diligently working on putting all the financial plan in the rate study. Once they're able to get all that information in there, that's when we'll be able to tell, okay, can we afford to purchase all 3 of those next year? And is there any possibility that we can purchase any of them this year? But we can't make that determination until we get all that information in that rate study. We don't want to negatively impact the residents if buying everything now is going to mess up with all the finances. So right now we have it penciled in as going in 23. $1 million for sub 3 in 23, $2 million in 23 for sub 4. The San Felipe is just an extra 100,000 just in case we need some extra money to finish up that project. We were talking about that before. The design's almost done. We're going to bid it out this right around Christmas time, and then they'll start work on that one. And then we also have $2 million for transformers for sub 5. And then there's the other, the sub 1 to sub 4 and sub 2 to sub 3 feeder ties, both of those projects.
Okay, so, so what I understand is that the substation 3 is $1 million for the design. And is that something we really anticipate to be $1 million for just the design work? That's what that's what this document here says, your
Yeah.
digital book says. So that's, and then so, yeah, definitely 4 and 5, can't see how that, so can we reduce that then, if that's, because if we're looking at, my understanding is we didn't have the extra 2 million. Well, first off, have we had a chance to get any better idea of what what a transformer piece, or and was anybody willing to give us any type of break?
Marvis, he
one?
can elaborate on it, but he's been struggling to get some numbers from them.
Yeah, most companies don't want to give a true quote without an RFQ, and without permission to do that, I can't just put one out. But I have got some feedback today and from ABB, so and Monday from Georgia. So hopefully I can get a really rough estimate on what they'll cost, but it won't be obviously it won't be a true number.
You know, you might try reaching out to Overton Power District or Valley Electric or Lincoln County Power District. Overton, I'm sure he buys those transformers. NV Energy does too. They may not want to talk, but usually those guys will talk to you. Overton especially, I would think, because we've had a good relationship with them over the years. And I'm sure they probably buy those type transformers and would probably be happy to tell us what they pay for a transformer or a substation, whatever, you know. Give us some rule of thumb anyway.
I understand that the only downside of that is because now everything has skyrocketed and everything has escalated 30 to 50%, everything. So just in that alone, I think that's where we're going to run into the problems, getting a true number, because Overton would probably be basing it on their last purchases. So, we could take that into consideration and do an adder of 30 to 40% maybe, but again, that's still, playing with the numbers that are not that accurate.
No, I think you're right, but it may be worth a call to the manager up there or one of their engineers and just say, hey, what are you guys paying for a transformer nowadays? What do you expect them to be costing? Because they buy a few of them, I know. And maybe it'd be a good place to get started anyway, just a phone call.
Like I said, I will, like I said, ABB, I'll be reaching back out to them tomorrow. The guy called me this afternoon, actually, as I was headed here. So I do have a call to Georgia, our representative from Georgia Transformer, which is Virginia, which we're kind of not real high on Virginia.
Yeah, I know we haven't had good luck with Virginia Transformers.
But if it's what's out there, it's what's out there. So,
yeah.
So, okay.
Now, stepping back to the question about the design costs, I really don't have an idea what the design would cost. We can try to make some phone calls so we can get a firmer number for what we need to put in here for FY23 and 24. But right at this time, I don't really know.
Okay, when we had our meeting and Keegan wasn't here, we talked about what number we were using for each transformer. And that was including, and we came to the number of the $5 million. That wasn't just that was what we put in this plan for the whole thing. So I can switch it around, but in that conversation, we said, okay, this is what we're going to put in there, kind of worst case scenario. When we can adjust it as we go. So that's where that number came from.
I think part of what happened is we weren't really, so I think there was some confusion last time that we were trying to discuss and try to understand, and we were trying to, so my understanding is to help with all this, is we were looking at, see, at that time, there was $500,000 for the, for substation 3, there was $500,000 for the design work, and there was $300,000 for, I believe, everything else, and that's
Correct.
And so we said, okay, you needed, the number of $2 million came out for the transformers. And then we were trying to figure out construction, and we didn't even talk about other equipment. So I guess, so then when it came out on paper, and the one, we were looking at possibly, okay, the $3 million, we didn't know if that was a 5-year estimate, 5 years ago, we didn't know when that was put in.
Correct.
And so we realized, well, all this outgoing cost, that most likely that needed to be increased. But then if I'm understanding correctly and looking at the sheets, the $1 million is specifically for design work.
That is my fault. I went in and we decided in the beginning, sorry, go ahead.
Marvis just reminded me, sub 3 has already been designed, but it's been sitting on the shelf for a while. So we want to dust that off, have it double checked, make sure that we don't need to make any changes to it because it's been sitting for a while. So it's not going to be the million, but the million would be a worst case to roll that into whatever construction is going to be, because like Marvis is saying, material cost is going through the roof, construction cost is going through the roof, so that would be for design, and we could possibly start construction with that, knowing that we have the 3 million the year after that.
But basically, though, my understanding was, like you said, 5 million, we've assumed with this one that we're doing 2 million this year for the transformers. So for that substation
Correct.
3, and so if it doesn't, then are we rolling that into $3 million for 23? If finance says we can't do it in 22?
You're talking about sub 3, right?
Yes.
So sub 3, if we can't, just saying, if we just use the mindset that we can't do anything this year, I would recommend putting 2.5 in for sub 3. So 2 million for for the transformer, 500,000 for the design. We don't know what it's going to cost. If they're just dusting it off and making some minor changes, it might not cost a whole lot. So that would be my recommendation, is putting 2.5 in there. And then for, it's not going to be 3 million for the entire construction of that, Marvis, is it? Again, we don't know.
Was there any
Initially,
type-
that 3 million included the transformers, correct?
So we could, if that's the case, if we move 2.5 to 23, then we'd only need $1 million in.
Well, the one thing is I know what you're saying, Carol, and we did say that we needed to increase the amount because of everything's changing, but we need something to go on. We just threw numbers out. We all did. And so how do we tell the council that, oh, we just picked a number, said get an extra $1 million, and that was partly my fault. I said, okay, what do you need? But without any estimate, how can you tell council that that's a reasonable cost?
So I guess what I'm just trying to make clear in my mind is at our last meeting, we put a per transformer cost on there. So if we're gonna adjust it, I just wanna make sure we're gonna adjust it all the way through. But in our conversation, we said we understand that until we get those numbers, this is what we're putting in here, and especially for 24 and out. And we're gonna adjust it when we get the actual numbers that come in, but we'd rather be higher than to have to come back too low. So this is just what came out of the last meeting. If we've changed that stance and we wanna go in and lower, I'm just concerned that it needs to be we use that number for each of the transformers. So we need to adjust all of them if we're gonna adjust one of them, because if you look, we kind of went in and said each transformer is gonna be this much money. And we knew we were high, but at the point, we also knew that what the costs are and the availability issues was a big concern, and the fact of what is it gonna cost us. So we can reduce them, do whatever, but we just need to be, I think we need to be consistent all the way through when we do it.
Eileen, you had the concerns, can you help us here?
Well, in that meeting, Marvis estimated ballparked a transformer cost between $500,000 and $750,000.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow we started adding $1 million per transformer. And I think that's way too high. Of course, I don't know what they cost, but so instead of adding $2 million for each pair of transformers, I would think our top estimate should be 1.5 million.
That's fine.
And then we didn't reduce the actual budget for the project to account for the fact that we were purchasing the transformers. You know, we were adding money for the transformers in earlier years and not reducing the budget by that much for the amount that the whole project was budgeted for. So we were just throwing $2 million into every project without reducing and making estimates. So I think that whole process needs to be rethought.
That makes sense.
You know, I was thinking it might be worth a phone call to Overton or maybe Lincoln County. Indus Cooper, Dave Luttrell, those are the managers, at least they used to be the managers. They're nice guys. And they might be more than happy to just give you an idea of transformer's going to cost this, substation's going to cost you this. Because I'm really uncomfortable with these kind of numbers because I honestly don't have a clue what these numbers are anymore. And so they just sound high, but everything's high nowadays. So it would be helpful to maybe just make a phone call and just say, hey, this is where we're at. Can you give us an idea? And I think they'd be more than happy to help, you know, because they're good guys. They really are. So
I believe I have a meeting with those guys.
SSEA, Silver State?
Yep.
Yeah.
I want to say tomorrow morning.
Yeah, just bring it up with them and they could probably tell you right off the top of their head.
Yeah,
They're
if
good
I
guys.
don't, I'll make the phone call.
Perfect, good idea.
So going with what Eileen was just suggesting, if we say 1.5 for a pair of transformers and possibly 500,000 for design, we'd need 2 million in sub 3 for the first year.
If we don't do it in 22.
If we don't do it in
If we
22.
don't start the transformers.
Yep.
Because that's the one thing that we're really pushing for is I think we need to talk with finance. And finance says no because we've got money. There's $17 million in electrical available cash right now. Now some of that's encumbered, but we have quite a bit. We've got to start purchasing the supplies. We have to start doing it. And if we push it off until July at the earliest of next year, that's not going to help us. So I would like to sort of really push hard in that 1.5 in 22 and then 500,000 in 23. And then I guess we'll see what finance, but I can't see we can't do 1.5 out of what we have right now. I have a hard time believing it can't be done.
Yeah.
It's the same type of thing with water. So we get there, we need to start purchasing supplies if we, but that's, you know, we've been trying to help and keep pushing that for the last 2 years, I believe, and so we've got to start working with it. So I think we're just stepping backwards if we push it and put that money in there, so I would like to keep it.
Yep, yeah, that's what I talked to
22.
finance about, and they said as soon as they get the numbers in, they're happy to sit down with me and they'll tell me, yep, you can afford to get these 2 now, or these 4, or they'll let us
Okay.
know.
So I guess worst case scenario, you're saying it would be it'd be,
The 1.5 plus, say, 500 for design for sub 3, so it'd be 2 million the first year.
but I would suggest, unless somebody else says, I would suggest let's put the 500 in so reduce it to 500.
Okay.
And that way we're pushing, and we can even tell council that we really think that it should be purchased as soon as possible and start the purchasing process as soon as possible. So we believe it needs to be done beforehand.
So you're saying 22, we put 1.5 in there, or we'll get a more accurate number, and then
Right.
and then 500K.
And that's the suggestion. I'm just,
And nothing in 24, right?
well, no, 24,
We'll
you're
still
gonna,
need construction funding.
Okay.
yeah, so the
So-
problem, that's where, if you can talk to Overton, then get an estimate on, you've got you got other equipment that has to be purchased for that, I believe, right? So you got other equipment, and then you've got construction costs. So I guess, Marvis, can that other equipment be purchased in a short period, or does that need to be out there?
It has to be out there. Everything is 30 to almost 48 weeks out, everything.
Well, so again, the question is do we increase 23 to purchase the equipment? Or do we put it in 24 and then the construction goes in 24 and 25?
And I know that's that's the point that Miss Eileen just brought up about, and that's the reason I just sat back there, but that's the reason that you guys added the extra money. I know, because we were estimating the transformers and we didn't want to be short and then have to turn around and do this again and go back to finance and or council to up the money. So that's why the other money was added. Because we'd rather be on top and not use it than not have it, than need it and not have it, and then have to do this whole process again. So that's the reason for going from, like I said, the estimates were for 500 to 750. So you guys agreed, let's just make it $1 million. And that's why that was. And that's to cover any additional costs that we might incur. Again, ordering material, breakers, reclosures, all of those things have to be ordered. And again, they're 30 to 48 weeks out. Just, when you put an order in, you're waiting on that amount of time. So, and again, we're at a point now, some of these manufacturers are not even taking orders anymore because they're that far in arrears of trying to fill the ones that are already out there. And that's what we're going to have to deal with. And the longer we put it off or prolong it or whatever case may be, it's just going to be that much longer and much more difficult to fill these orders.
No, the problem is that in the document that was given to us, it said that, quote, that the engineering of the project was gonna cost that much money. It didn't say engineering and components, it said engineering design. Wasn't it $1 million for one of the substations and it went up to $2 million for one of them?
It was $1 million for design, and then,
For the one substation and the other one, and then the third substation was $2 million.
no, it was still only $1 million for design.
Yeah, but I was saying, they didn't say design and parts or equipment, they just said design.
Exactly.
So that's why we're asking the question. Somebody mixed up or dropped a word.
I'm just a little bit confused. So on substation 3, the way this is, we were gonna ask for the money to purchase the transformers in 22, and then $1 million in 23, and $3 million in 24. So what are we changing it? Because I swore you just said, what did you say to put in for design?
I was saying 500,000 because we have the design, it's just
Okay.
old.
So I'm changing 23 to 500, and I'm leaving the 3 million in 24. Okay, so, and what is that? And we're saying that in 22, we're gonna ask for,
1.5.
But what I'm
instead
hearing,
of 2.
what I'm hearing is, if you guys talk to Overton or somebody else, then hopefully you can get a better idea. That we're just trying to get something, again, if council asks us, and we just say we started throwing money around, then that doesn't help anybody. Council doesn't have a good thing and stuff like that. So trying to figure out what is reasonable in the budget is what we're all trying to figure out.
Okay, so we went, at the last meeting, we said 500, or 5 million. So now we're reducing it to 4?
No, I understand the confusion, but what the problem was is in the document that we received as part of the packet, it said design work for one substation was gonna be $1 million, not 500,000,
Okay,
no equipment, so that was just a boo-boo.
I'll make that correction
Okay.
because I think that's just something I did out of my notes.
Right,
We
but
weren't
when-
sure we were gonna do the design and we were gonna adjust it. So I'll make that, I'm just trying to make sure I make the right corrections.
Okay, so the other correction, it says under electric requests for the document that's on page 21, it goes out to year 2027. We need to fix the font size on 7. It's the wrong size.
I've tried, and it's a work in progress. I'll
Okay.
fix the font size.
And then the thing is it says reconstruct substation 3, including new transformers, breakers, and other scheduled equipment that has reached end of life, and it says $4 million. But in a document that was put out prior to that, it said $1 million for design. So we've identified the fact that that was a boo-boo,
Okay.
and now we're on track to where if you break down the $4 million that's in the big broad number, we're gonna have X number of dollars for $500,000 for design, and the remainder of that money is gonna be for purchase and procurement of equipment. Okay, and that's what I'm saying, that we've gotta get fixed up, because if this gets submitted to city council like this, they're gonna just lose a gasket. And then on substation 4, it says $5 million. Substation 4 should be pretty much similar to substation 3, is that correct, Marvis? Or we got new equipment coming in? I mean, but the same basic equipment? Okay, so why'd we increase it by $1 million?
We didn't. Because some of that in 22 is not in there.
Right. That's more of the lines of construction as well, because we're not gonna deconstruct that like we're taking 3 down. So it'll have to stay in place and work around, and since you.
Oh, yeah, I'm very familiar with that kind of work.
Absolutely. So that's why it's equivalent and/or probably more. than-
Yeah, so basically it's hot work.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we need to say that. In other words, basically it says reconstruct, and we're using the same language in both of them. We're not talking about bulldozing substation 3, starting fresh, we're talking about reconstruction. And on substation 4, we're talking reconstruct substation 4 with the same language and vernacular that goes all the way through, upgrading the system for an eventual 4 to 12 kV cutover.
So you want all of this spelled out verbatim?
Well, I'm saying if you're gonna send this document to city council, you know, we can give them the highlights in the report we're gonna write, but the thing is, I have to justify an extra $1 million for 2 similar substations. So what it'll say on substation 4, this price includes live line work and cutover during existing system.
Okay, that's my fault. I sold the description short, and I'll make sure going forward that it's more spelled out.
Well, yeah, in other words, if they wanna read it, they can read it, but if there's nothing there to read, they can't read into it. You know, and then that's one of the things. In other words, we know 3, we know 4, and we know 5. 5, I think, needs to be
It's gonna be similar to 4.
expanded upon to where it's live line work and demolition and replacement of underrated foundations, because you're gonna put a bigger transformer on there.
Correct.
So if you put a little bit more verbose in it, then they go, oh my gosh, that's a lot of work to do for that amount of money. Okay, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to take and make it more palatable to the city council as to what we're spending the money on. And, you know, estimates like we used to do were plus or minus 30%. Okay, now it's 40%. Okay, they're wags. They're what we call in the trade a wag. That's all we can do. Thing is concrete's gone up almost doubled in the past 18 months, 2 years. Yeah, so everything's just going up exponentially, and we can't tackle them all at once, or we should shut the city off and then start. We can do work that way.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, that's all we're looking at, is we're looking at,
Okay.
we understand the costs at the table here, but the thing is, we want to expound upon it a little bit to where other people that are reading it going, okay, this is what we're getting for the money we're going to be putting out.
Okay, understood. And like I said, I'll take responsibility for that, because these are the descriptions that I did give Ms. Carroll. So I'll be more expansive.
And you've got enough work to do, but I understand what you're trying to do. But the thing is we can, you know, if you baffle them with a little bit of this and that, you know, we can get a little bit more easier sale of the item.
Yes, sir.
If I could make a suggestion, I would definitely suggest to keep this document
the way it is at a high level for city council, and because they don't need to be all up in the weeds. Like, that's what you guys are for. If you guys want to provide additional detail, I think you guys should put that in your report to city council to go along with this. But I think this document is perfect the way it is. It's a high level document, and it has the basics, all the extra detail that should be in you guys' report.
But we need that, though. We need it, so somebody has to give that to us.
Yeah, but you guys already know all this stuff. We had a very.
No, we don't. We just ask the question.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, we've like the last meeting, we went over this stuff in detail when we made all the suggestions and rearranging the 5-year and everything. So, like, if you guys want to like write it down, maybe, and like so we can like don't have to keep going over it.
Well, the hot is just brand new. There's a lot of information as we're talking is new. So I don't disagree with some of the information. I think we would still be better to have a little bit more information on some of these informations. A paragraph or a sentence or two doesn't always cut it. You know, we're not asking to put in this document pages worth of data. We're just asking for a little bit of more explanation. So we need to come up with a compromise, but we're still learning. We're still trying to understand the situation. So, for instance, to try to avoid more confusion next time, let's just go back to 3 really quick, because I know there's still more confusion. At least I'm trying to figure it out. So we've got more equipment we need to purchase. So do we purchase it in 22? Do we purchase it in 23? When do we purchase it in 24? So
We don't know that until
Finance
can.
completes their thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, but okay, but what I'm saying is to get it, so if we start construction, we're saying right now we want to construct in 24.
Correct.
So if the equipment has to be out there, then maybe the $1 million is what you need. I'm just, because you need additional equipment. It's not the design, so you would have, we have transformers, we have design work, and we have other equipment that needs to be done. And we want the equipment purchased before we do construction. So all we're asking for is a little better swag. And so if you talk to Overton, and if they've done something similar in the last year or two, then even if we throw 30% on top of that or 40%, then we say, okay, then we understand at least it's something deal, and it's again with something we can take to the deal. And if the ideal situation that I would probably say would be put the transformers in this year, that would be ideal. Just so then, and then we would look at number for 23. Then we would say additional design work, and you've got additional equipment, right? So if we can figure out what additional equipment. So that would probably, it might have to be $1 million, but we explain what the $1 million is for. And then in 24, then it's construction. And so how much do we need in 24? Do we need 25, do we need $2.5 million? But I don't think we need the $3 million for construction, do we?
We don't know.
Probably.
By the time we get to
This is
24.
not me being a smart, but probably.
Okay, but if we could, so I guess some of the stuff, instead of arguing it, if we can get a quote from somebody like Overton or something, it would be helpful. But Carol, I'm just trying to help you. I don't want to come back again in November and say, well, we talked about this and now we want to move it. I'm just trying to understand. But if we talk about equipment, design, and construction, and is there a third component? But we got 3 components that we're trying to work with. We're trying to figure out the cost, and we're trying to figure out timing. We're just trying to discuss it and help it. We're not trying to, because we agree, and we've been saying it all along. We totally agree with you. We want to get it purchased as soon as possible. We want the equipment to get purchased.
Point of context. You said transformers. How many were we going to buy in this year, emergency purchase? 2?
That was my understanding.
Okay, well, when you say transformers, put a number, because we need 6.
Right. Well, but it's okay. So if we go down,
we can't afford 6 in this year.
if we go down the line, that's what the $2 million for, and that's what we got to figure out. Is it 2 million or is it 1.5? Now, so if instead of arguing about it, if we can reach out and ask somebody, maybe that's a better way to do it. Is just to say, so if we need to leave, so whatever, we've got a little bit of disagreement, I guess, in trying to understand which is at 1.5, 1.75, or 2 million. So if we can get some type of swag, then it would be nice. Because we're going down the list of, if it's equipment and design, then the $1 million might be right, if we go from the top. Then you got $2 million. If that's for the transformers, then that's either 2 million or 1.5 or 1.75, depending on what we agree on. The $100,000, that's something. So we're not including that. So that's different because we're not including that in any of these other programs. We're not saying that the year after it's done, we're including extra money. So we anticipate there might be something needed in San Felipe that some of these other projects don't need.
That's the one that's finishing up design right now that we're gonna bid out.
Yes.
We just asked for an extra 100,000 just in case we need something if the project doesn't get completed.
Okay. Okay. So then we go down to so now we've got the substation 5. So again, that would be whatever is you believe is the best transformer estimate. And then the 1.2, when was that information? When was that calculated? Was that years back? Was that recent? So what is the 1.2 and how accurate is that?
I don't know. It's gonna be part of the construction process, I'm sure. Like I said, I'd have to go back and look.
So all we're trying to do again is just trying to if we're doing something for the report for the city council, is try to understand what's going on. So, but if I'm hearing right, then all of those projects for electrical have to be done to keep moving forward. So that's one thing I'm hearing from council is they're saying, does it have to be done? And I'm hearing this all does.
Yeah.
Yes.
This sub 1 to sub 4 is for the cutover for the 4 to 12 kV.
Right, and sub 2 is the same thing, right?
Yep.
So it's got to be done. So if we could just, now the problem is Greg's going to try to put the report together this month, and we're going to come back and have it. And if I'm understanding correctly, you're looking at December, the early December meeting is when you want to actually vote on it. So we would have however we do it in this committee, if we're approving the report or whatever, we agree that the report is correct, then I guess I would be taking that report to the council because we're not going to have a joint meeting, which we're hoping for. So we would have to take that to the council on whatever the council meeting is in December.
It's December 14th.
So our meeting is on the 7th, I believe. That's the first Wednesday of the month, I believe.
December 1st, isn't it?
It's first.
Yeah, December 1st.
Did I look at the wrong calendar? So December 1st is Wednesday, not Thursday? Right. Okay, thank you. Then, so, okay, that gives us a little bit extra time. Huh?
One day.
Well, no, the 1st compared to the 7th. So I must have been looking at the wrong calendar. Must have been looking at the other, the 22 instead of 21. So then we would be discussing that, and then I guess so there would be a small amount of time if the numbers were changed, and also Greg can work with you guys, I guess, or if you can get more information to Greg, then we can work on that.
Yep.
So is there anything else in that, Greg, that I'm missing?
I understand what we're gonna be doing on the writing of it, and I will have it to you in a couple days. I am gonna make a note that on November 11th, I'm going in for hand surgery. So my writing skills will be typing skills, and I am gonna do my best on that.
Okay, so I know I keep asking the same question. Substation 3.
I would hold off on your numbers for now until I can make some of these phone calls to Overton or Lincoln, and we can hopefully get some updated numbers from that.
Okay, so I'm not making,
Leave these numbers for now, but we need to talk to finance. Whatever we can put in 22 is gonna affect everything else. If it's no way possible to put anything in 22, then we're gonna have to reanalyze how we're gonna do 23, 24, 25.
But just so we're all clear, to make sure that it does help, I think we're looking at, like I said, the equipment, design, and construction. So what might increase in 23 that we were actually asking to reduce If we're talking about extra equipment, then that would be where we would look at possibly additional money. So we're looking at possibly design and equipment in '23, which we hadn't looked at additional equipment in '23 before. Does that help clarify?
Yes, and once we, will be able to, get a better quantified number once, the plans are reviewed and are proven to be still valid, and then we can know exactly what equipment outside of transformers that we'll be needing, and we can put numbers to those things.
And like we've talked about before, so if we say that might happen in March, then we would tell council that these numbers might change because you're currently reviewing it, and that would need to be done. So that would be part of our report, I guess. So that's something we also need to know and would be helpful.
And like I said, those are, correct me if I'm wrong, those are currently gonna be sent to TOR to review again in the near future, so that's on the docket now, so.
And another thing to keep in mind, we're asking council for tentative approval. So when you're saying that these numbers may change this spring, that's perfectly fine. Council doesn't formally adopt the budget until May. So if we put in our estimates now or next week or next month, that it's fine, and then we can update them as we get better numbers all the way until May. I'd prefer not having to make major changes in the spring, because that's when they're doing all the O&M stuff, but if there is changes that we need to make, we can make those changes.
You know, I'm curious, maybe you don't know, but do you know who the design engineer was that designed these substation modifications, upgrades, rebuilds?
The name of the person?
The name of the company?
TOR, T-O-R, TOR.
TOR.
TOR Engineering, yes.
Do you know where they look, where are they out of, do you know?
I can't remember.
Or they could be.
Yes.
Okay.
Arizona and.
You know, you can always, if you paid them to do design work, you could call them and get an updated cost estimate too. They would have a feel for where those numbers are at.
Right, exactly. And that's what I was just saying, once they review the plans, 'cause like I said, these plans are these plans are pretty close to 7 years old now.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yes.
So they could probably give you a pretty good idea
Right.
what the new prices would be. Because
That's what we'll be-
this
put
isn't the
numbers
first set of plans like that. I'm sure they use the same cookie cutter design for most utilities. So they probably have a pretty good feel for what those numbers are. So that would be a good place to start maybe too.
Real quick, I have a question about, Keegan, when you say we have to go to finance. Is that because for them to have the numbers to put into the budget, or are you asking whether we have the funds available?
Whether we have the funds available, we know that we have funds in that account. We're just worried that if we spend, say, we buy 4 transformers, so $3 million, if we try to buy them right now, we don't want to negatively impact anything down the road. We got to make sure all the projects are in this rate model to make sure that we don't have to go ask for a rate hike in a year or two.
Yeah, for the rate model. Okay,
Yep.
well, I just wanted to make the comment that, and Larry mentioned this a few minutes back, but finance, in their reports for the end of September, when they talk about the money that's available, that you have available money of $17 million in just electric alone. And the total utilities is almost 41 million.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you make the case that you can save money by doing some of these things now, then, I mean, I can't imagine council wouldn't approve that.
Yeah. I feel that we have council's support on this.
Right.
I just want to make sure that we don't have to come back next year and say, sorry, we got to ask for a rate increase.
Oh, no, I don't want to see that either. I mean, the utility funds made $10 million last year. I'm looking to, hopefully, that we can get to another small decrease. Okay, thanks.
Carol, do you have a comment? I thought, okay.
I just think it's a really good idea. The reason we have that Raptelis report and we have that program is we need to use it. So when we go in and we make changes like this to the capital plan, it needs to go in there because that's a dollar amount that was in that account on that day. That's a snapshot. We need to go in and look at the whole picture And we need to look at all 5 years. We need to look at everything. And that's what needs to go in there. Because, is that $17 million? We need to make sure what's already, put into the capital. What every dime of that, that's what that rep tell us program's for. So I think it's very financially prudent for us to use it and make sure that we're making, good decisions and making sure that we understand the long-term effect, like Keegan said.
Well, I agree, but the utilities in the last several years have been making tens of millions of dollars more revenues than expenses. And the funds available by the city have increased over the last 5 years, probably at least $50 million.
But we also
So
have a
we have
lot of
cash.
capital projects that
I understand, but
very
when you look
important.
at these numbers and then you think going forward you're going to make more money, it looks like we can pay for that.
Yep, that rate model will confirm that. Yep.
Okay.
I think part of we weren't pushing back, but it was just concerned was how long it was gonna take. You didn't know how long it was gonna take, and we're asking for this by December, and so we didn't know how long it was gonna take. So we totally agree. I think everybody here would agree that we wanna utilize that, and we've asked for that too. That's part of the goals. Is so we can understand it, so we can do the rates early, and we, because that was talked about doing that in late spring, and so that's why we asked for that early. So we want that also. So we're just saying if it can't be done soon, just see what we have now. But okay. Can we go on? I guess go on to water real quick then.
Yep. So for next year in the water, it's kind of a boilerplate project, the rebuild pressure reducing valve stations. We have $100,000 request in there. We don't have anything specifically identified. Mike probably has a pretty good idea of which ones are on their last leg, but the 100,000's in there so we can replace them as we know that they're failing. And then again, the water service replacement project, $600,000. You'll see that across the chart. We have, what do we say, 10, 12 years of services? Yeah, 10 or 12 years of services that we need to do. And then the next request for next year would be $200,000 for the butterfly valves. You see that one going across the board for the next 3 years, 1, 2, 3 years. And then what we're calling the golf course estates and water service and valve replacement project, that's the streets that we want to repave next fall. So we want to go through and do the water services and the valves first. That'll save us money because the contractor won't have to pay to do all the asphalt patches after they do the water services and valves. We'll have RTC do that as a part of our roadway project.
So that's your it just didn't get carried over. So that's Bermuda, that golf course, and so that should be on over. Okay, I'm missing something. Never mind. Okay, there. I was looking at the wrong column, I guess. Okay, so the 550 is what you're figuring would be for the Bermuda with everything that's needed.
Yeah, we used one of our most recent water service projects to come up with the estimate for the water services. I believe there was 60-some services down there. We reduced that some because of the asphalt savings, and then we had some valves recently replaced. Used that estimate, but bumped it up just a little bit for a factor of safety, and then plugged that into that 550. We put a little bit of extra on there. I think it came in just over 500,000 for our estimate, but we bumped that up to 550 just to be on the safe side.
Okay, so we were looking at that most of the projects are gonna, it looks like the water is running a little bit, doesn't have as many of the design issues. So we get some of it done. We're still looking at the butterfly, but it wouldn't be worth putting the butterfly off because this one we would probably start it sometime in 23 if we would keep it going. Mm-hmm. So everything in there that I'm understanding, again, just so clarification and report purposes, everything is needed to be done.
Yep.
Okay, Eileen?
When we looked at this at the last meeting, there were the 100,000 for the rebuild the PRV stations. was listed under CIP number 3, and this time it is not. It's listed under water, and I'm just wondering what changed.
Oh, it's still, in the backup information, it still has the 100 grand in CIP number 3. This is on page.
I'll correct it. The packet that you got was correct. Those 11 by 17 sheets, I had an hour's notice to do those. That's my mistake. I'll correct it on that sheet. Those are ones that I just did for this meeting at the last minute. What's in your packet and what's in ClearGov is correct.
Yeah.
And I'll shift that over. I apologize.
Okay, thank you.
I take the blame for that because I thought it would be helpful for you guys to be able to view it on one sheet versus having to flip through all the projects. So I think she did a great job with maybe an hour's notice.
Well, I appreciate it, Carol, thank you, and because I'd asked for it too, so I appreciate that, because it was confusing trying to do it out of this report. So I guess going forward though, Carol, is the brochure gonna have a document with each one brought out, or is it gonna be more of this digital book that you're showing, if I'm understanding it correctly?
We're using that digital book moving forward, but she's still trying to look at different reporting options within the program. It's kind of a work in progress. She's been in constant communication with ClearGov, working on some of the tweaks. Like Mr. Gregg had mentioned earlier, the 27, with the 7 being a different text. For some reason, the program thinks it needs to put 28 in there, so we're manually manipulating that 7. That's why it looks goofy.
Your report, it's smaller, but when I sent the backup to council yesterday, we fixed it.
But it's
So-
still being manually done because ClearGov, their 5-year plan is apparently 6.
Okay.
They'll, it's a great program. It's just, they need to, there's a couple tweaks in it.
Okay, but, so in the past, we had a brochure that clearly showed the 5 years. So I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, so on the 7th, or no, it's the 9th. The 9th. How is it gonna be presented to council? Is it gonna be-
Council will have the full backup with what you guys are seeing in your guys' backup, but it'll be all the general fund, all the utilities projects. Then I'm gonna do, between Carol and I, we'll do a PowerPoint that's just gonna highlight the 23. We'll still be talking about 24 through 27, but it'll be highlighting 23, so they'll see the breakdown of what we're asking for next year, but then also in the backup, they'll have everything. These individual sheets, bless you, these individual sheets are all hand done. So that's where she's working with ClearGov to see if there's other reporting options, because I like being able to see all 5 years right here in front of me.
Well, yeah, in the past, it's because I guess I haven't seen a brochure like we've had in the last years. I've been looking on the website and maybe I'm missing it.
The brochures have been done by finance in the past. We've never done the brochures, and in speaking with finance a few months ago, they said they would still like to do those brochures, but they're probably going to wait until they're actually working on the full budget process.
Yeah, those brochures are done with a final, those brochures don't go out in the planning stages. They go out when it's actually done in a single printing.
Yeah, and the other thing is we gotta make sure the information that's going to the brochures is correct. And that's what we're working on tonight.
That's why they produce it at the printed brochure at the end.
Oh, no, and that's great.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if we were changing formats, and since I hadn't seen it, I wasn't.
Last I
sure.
talked to them, they're still planning on doing the brochures. They like having all the different funds broken out into the brochures, like the VERF and everything. But yeah, that's always been done by finance. I'd have to confirm if they still plan on doing it, but last I heard they wanted to.
Okay, because it just, yeah, okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else on water? Anybody else? Okay, then I guess go to sewer.
So sewer for next year, rehabilitate manholes, $360,000 for that. Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's just an estimate based off of what we've seen in the past for per manhole costs. Mike's nodding his head that I'm correct. That's where that estimate's coming from. And then you'll see in CIP 3 that we've got lift station 1 improvements. Hopefully that'll help take care of some of the odor issues that we've been experiencing. I know Mike's guys have been working hard, trying different options to help with that, but this project will definitely help with that. The chlorine contact chamber, was that just for, let me see. Was that the design of it? No, we have the design already in there to hire a consultant, so this would be actually working the work. And then again, under CIP 3, we have 200 grand for the aeration basins, and then that continues on for a couple of years.
But now again, those two, if I understand correctly, is the chlorine related to the treatment plant, or is that something different?
I believe that's what this one's for, right?
And then the
treatment plant.
concrete lines, the treatment plant, so those aren't we gonna put those on hold, or you're asking for it just in case?
I want to have them in here just in case that nothing happens with this new treatment plant. Because if it doesn't happen, then this work still needs to happen. And we should hopefully, I know the city manager and I are going to meet with an SNWA representative, I think it's next week, or maybe, yeah, it's next week, to have a discussion to see what the next steps are.
I'm sorry, Mike, go ahead. Or I guess we got answered. So I'm assuming for our report, though, we would put that this is a placeholder.
Yep, you can put that caveat on there is this needs to happen if the treatment plant doesn't move forward.
Okay.
Is part of the SNWA conversation going to entail pumping the effluent back over the hill to Henderson?
Not to my knowledge.
That's an absolute, we're not going to talk about that.
What we're talking about right now is upgrading the treatment plant and pumping it to either or golf course and park, Veterans Memorial Park.
So what are we going to do about our dust mitigation down in the valley for more construction? And the gravel quarry that's using it, or was using it, now they're off the pipe.
The dust control for the solar plants, I'm not seeing us needing a whole lot of that moving into the future. Some of those are wrapping up. We will need some. That might be something that we handle with, they use the treated effluent. It all depends on how much we're going to actually need at the golf courses. Maybe I know some of them have basins or something they can fill up. Maybe they can fill up when the golf course isn't being used.
So instead of using raw water out of the lake, we'll be trying to reutilize our SNWA effluent. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to get credit for that?
We got to talk through that and figure out how that's going to work. That's part of our discussion.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, when you're doing your reporting, you can put that caveat in there that these are placeholders. Next one is lift station 3 improvements. That's going first year, second year.
Do we have a lift station? Is lift station 2 in good shape? Did we do that, or did I see 1, 3, and 4, and I don't see 2? Did I?
Lift station 2 does not exist anymore. So we don't just have a total of 3 lift stations total.
Okay.
We just never renumbered it.
Okay.
That would be confusing for people that have been around for a while. Yeah. New guys like me wouldn't know the difference. And then rehabilitate 18-inch sanitary sewer mains. That's, I'm sure Mike's got some in mind, but this is more, we're not specifying exactly what needs to be replaced. And that probably plays into finishing up our sewer modeling. So those are I missed the very last one is the one that I verbally spoke about before, is adding a shower and a restroom down to the treatment plant. That could be another placeholder or caveat, however you want to word it in there, if we're not going to move forward with the treatment plant. But as it is right now, anybody that gets inorganic material on them that doesn't want it on them, we've had to send people home to take a shower. And so this is more of a safety issue down there. So we figure for 75,000, we can add a restroom and an actual shower down there for the safety of the guys.
Well, because, can we, do something temporarily, just to, almost even like, well, I guess, something that's on the cheap that if we have to tear down, it's not a problem, so, because if we have to wait for the rebuilding, it's still gonna take time, so.
Yeah, that's gonna take time.
To keep-
Yeah, that's definitely something we can look into, something that's more temporary, or maybe we look in, I don't know if it would be beneficial at the shops too, but we'll look into some other options.
Because I think we'd like to back you up and see that if it's gonna help the workers, we're all for it. So it's what's the best solution and the quickest turnaround?
It can be listed as a safety item.
Oh,
Okay, and again, I'm sorry, just for the purposes, so everything I see there, it looks like something we need to get done in 23.
Yep.
So that would be something we could put in the report.
Yeah, and these, like I was saying earlier, it's a lot easier to get consultants to help us out with these types of projects than it is the electric projects. There's anybody you can call pretty much any consultant firm, and they've got a water or wastewater side of their house. So if we need any help with the design with these ones, it's a lot easier to take care of.
Okay, and then, so we've got the, evaluation on the water, is that that was the sewer, no, was that the water or the sewer? That was the sewer, Hemingway. So there's a possibility that something could come out of that.
Yep.
And so you might need to add something, and you might might be able to do it in 24, but it might be something that has to be done in 23 then.
Yeah, if it's something that comes out of the final reporting with that it's more emergency in nature, then we'll be coming forward with a request.
Okay. Okay, just go over my notes really quick. Okay, so, okay, so I guess, do you have enough information to do what you need, Greg? I know we've, gone over it quite a bit, and I appreciate the time. Okay, so I guess, any other questions or comments or anything on item number 3? Okay. Okay, so we will close item number 3 and go to item number 4, discussion and review of 5-year plan. Excuse me, discussion of the IRP.
Thank you. In the backup, you'll notice that there are some charts or graphs. I had reached out to the energy director at SNWA that helps us out with a lot of this, and to explain what you're seeing here. So the first sheet is just showing the historical loads. I don't know if... Holly, do you have the whole packet you can upload, or I don't know if Josh is going to help you, sorry. Oh, the packet for the meeting? That's the only place I was aware, but Josh knows where it's at. Yeah. So the first chart or the first page is just a spreadsheet showing our historical loads. The energy director, Mr. Krantz, was telling me that some of the reporting from Boulder City didn't quite match up with what they were seeing, and they also compared their stuff to WAPA. Their numbers were very close to what was being reported by WAPA, so that's what they were more focusing on to create the graphs for us. So if you look at the first graph, it's showing...
No, it's, the first graph, no, sorry, good, it's the first graph. Well, I guess, on one thing too, is,
Yes.
Okay, so,
That's the first page right
so
there.
the thing too that, are we talking calendar, are we on the same page with everybody? Are we talking calendar year or fiscal year? Where does it say that?
Yeah, this is
Okay,
August,
okay.
August of 20 through July of 21.
That's not calendar year.
Well, fiscal year is what he's having at the bottom.
Operating year, sometimes they call it.
Yep.
Okay, so that's even, so August through July, so then, but is that what, so are we all three on the same, because that's not what, unless they pulled August up, that's not how WAPA would be doing it. WAPA would be doing it either calendar year or fiscal year, and their fiscal year is October 1st through August. So that's where some of the numbers could be wrong if we're not looking at the same exact months.
Could be.
So just something to think about.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing I think that I need to, because what I used to do at the Bureau was I'd put 16 months together.
Okay.
And I think that might be handy, so something, so since we're on this subject, well, when we're done with this, then if we can talk about, because what is it, the information that's normally, I forget the name of it, that I think it is a calendar year, 12 months worth of data that's normally put out for Boulder City, but I'm not sure, I think it's probably from SE, is it called, does Greg or do you remember, Ned, the spreadsheet that has the energy, the cost and all that, it's just, huh? Thank you. So maybe if we can talk about that, because that might be a little, I was bringing it up now because that's sort of what I'm wondering if you pulled the data, but you'd have to make sure what months you're looking at.
Yeah. In terms of the graphs that he provided, he's using his information. So it doesn't matter if it's January to December or August to July. He's just merely trying to show us how much excess supply we have. So Holly, if you can go to the next page. Okay. Nope, up a little bit.
It's not cooperating.
Okay.
The only one above it is that one historic loads, and then there's this. There's nothing in between.
Well, you can just show the one you were showing, and all the graphs are similar, it's just different percentages. So this one's showing 16% excess supply, which this is the one that he's saying is more what we can work with. This one, so we recently are purchasing 5 megawatts from solar, but it's not actual solar purchase. It's firm power where it's being supplied around the clock. So the one that's saying that we have 15% excess supply is saying that we're taking that 5 megawatts, we're taking our load minus the normal hydropower and the 5 megawatts, and it's showing similar to that one, but it's all the way halfway across the chart that we have 50% excess supply. So the reason that he was doing this, let me back up a step, he's looking into the rooftop solar, how that's going to affect our system. By shaping some of the hydropower and selling the 5 megawatts that were recently got, it brought it down to 30% excess supply. And then the last one you're looking at there is shaping the hydropower even more to the off-peak hours and selling the solar. So this is what he was comfortable with, was that 16%. Long story short, he was essentially saying that our rooftop solar is at about 1.5 megawatts. We're doing about a half a megawatt a year. He didn't give me a recommendation per se, but he's saying that at some point in the near future, we're going to need to make a recommendation to council to pause the solar program. Whether that be when we reach 2 megawatts, 2.5, 3, 4, that's where we need to try to figure out where to draw that line at. Because otherwise, we're going to have way too much power, and it's going to negatively affect our system.
Is there any, I've heard the possibility of adding, battery backup to these systems where you can basically shape that load a little bit better and shift some of it from off-peak to the on-peak hours and things like that to help with that. I don't know if that's an option that could be looked at. maybe.
There
Make
are
that a
some of the
little bit
private companies that are looking at battery backup. We haven't explored that option.
I mean, maybe not the city, but for the customers
Yeah,
to do that.
yeah, that's always an option too.
If we're gonna make that recommendation to city council, I recommend that we get our city carport, roof port finished up and powered up.
Yep. And that is part of one of the general fund requests is doing some work out front. This all rolled out of upgrading the council chambers. We want to provide ADA access, which in turn led to the parking lot, and we don't have ADA access. The parking stalls aren't the right size, but then we would put more shade structures out there with solar. So kind of rolled into a much larger project, but it's something that needs to be done.
Now, I guess to make sure I'm understanding too, so the 5 megawatt contract, you talking about the one that we just signed last year? So it goes in effect, it went in effect in 22 and not 23? I was trying to remember.
I'm not exactly sure when that went into effect. I think it might be 23.
That's what I
beginning of
thought, so-
23.
I'm thinking that 23.
I think
Because I
that's
think
what
it's
it
the
was.
current one that they're working on opposite side. So it's Skylar now that one, the opposite side of I-11?
I believe
And
so,
I think
yeah.
there's who we did it with, and so they're not even finished, so.
Yeah.
Now, we're not getting it from their solar, like you said, but to my knowledge, it was once they were done, then they would start supplying it. So I guess I'm a little confused when you said that we're purchasing it, because we're not there yet.
We're gonna be receiving that extra 5 megawatts. That was part of the contract with them. Sorry, I misspoke. But that really concerned Mr. Krantz with SNWA that we just took on another 5 megawatts when we were already pretty much maxed out for our demand.
Is that at 100% load factor as well? Is that like 24/7?
Yes, that's gonna be firm.
It's gonna be hard to,
No, we still need, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I keep on saying, we really need to look that it was not spelled out in the contract that it's 100%.
Okay,
And that's the
that's
thing.
gonna be hard to deal with.
Yeah, we need
A lot
to,
of energy.
the way that I read the contract, so I guess we were gonna ask that SNWA come in, and I gotta go back and read the contract to make sure I'm not missing something, but we really need the legal and the, because it was the current legal, to my knowledge, wasn't involved with this current contract. And so, we need SNWA, but the way I read it was, all that was clear was that we would get 5 megawatts. We were not obligated to take 5 megawatts in March and April, because that's when Hoover puts out most of its power, so that was good. It also stated that they were to furnish in it, but I couldn't find where we had to buy it.
okay,
But there was nothing, in most cases, you usually have an exhibit that tells you how much energy you're gonna get. There was nothing there.
okay.
So there was nothing to say 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. There was nothing there. I'm
Okay.
just saying that we would ask for it and they would supply it. So, being that it's not solar, so I guess I would just, when we say it is 24, to my knowledge, it was not in there. I just need to clarify that.
Yeah, that's my understanding from talking to Mr. Krantz is at first he was extremely worried about it, but after reading further into it, maybe he had his legal team review it, but now he's more comfortable with it because he can sell it off
Okay.
when
but
he's trying to manage our load.
Okay, I see. But again, since it's not, I think it clarifies it's not necessarily solar. So we would have to find out, we wouldn't have to buy backup power for it.
Okay.
So that's, I guess we need them to tell us that to make sure we understand that correctly.
Yep.
And then the same thing is then, also then the next aspect is what we did the possibility with SNWA to go with up to 8, and I think since we had the 5, Dennis was saying that only we're looking at 3, and that was actually solar.
And yeah, that's another thing I was talking to Mr. Krantz about, and he's even recommending not doing that at all. That was from their solar field, correct? That's what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, he's recommending, once he found out about the 5 megawatts, he's recommending not doing anything with their solar field.
Okay, so since we're on IRP, am I going to, it's related to the IRP, it's just a little bit off field for what we're doing, is that if we do have a reduction in Hoover, can we still get enough renewables from the Silver State to cover cover our aspect.
Yes, yeah, and talking to Mr. Krantz, he's not concerned with that, because they buy in such bulk that he'll be able to shape it and make sure that we're in good shape at all times.
Okay, so we'll be within the state regulations. Okay, if that's the case, then I think that's what we're trying to point out, is we're just trying, solar does not necessarily give us the biggest benefit, and we just need to let the public understand that's what it is. So I think the presentation, maybe we need to have them really point that out in their presentation, so what goes to the public, they understand that it's, we're not losing out, we're actually benefiting the city by not doing it.
Now, as I understand, the stuff we're gonna be buying, the 5 megawatts is gonna be around just under 4 cents. And I think
It sounds familiar, yes.
CRC was gonna be selling it for closer to 3 cents, I think, something like that. So there's a trade-off there, but I don't know if there's anything we can work around to make something better of that, maybe not.
But we're still gonna be responsible for some of our Hoover contracts. So maybe that difference will help offset some of that.
We need to look at that. I'm sure that Scott's gonna be looking at that.
Yeah, unfortunately, my understanding is that contract for 5 megawatts is it was a 25 or 30-year contract, and the price, then there was another one, the price didn't, so if we're lucky, they never go up, because there was no escalation for that price either. There was nothing, so there was quite a few holes in that contract, and that's why and that's why I want to understand it more and to see it, because I was not comfortable with the way it was done, but it was given to us right before signature.
Yeah.
So nothing could be changed. So maybe if we have to, we might want to add in a exhibit, but if it's to our benefit, maybe we just leave it as it is. Because like I said, from what I understand, they were obligated, but we were not. We weren't obligated to purchase.
Okay.
So, but it was 39 cents, and it was, I believe it was 25 or 30 years, so. And I don't think there was any place for it, but we can negotiate and they can't negotiate either, so it's gonna be interesting to see what happens in the near future with it.
So I'm going to continue communications with Mr. Krantz, and based on his availability, he still offered to come out and talk about the rooftop solar and answer any other questions that you guys have.
So again, clear me up with this rooftop solar. What's going on here?
Really quick, we're reaching too much on the roof. We're getting to that point to where we're gonna have to shut it off because we, as a city, cannot afford to power swing. If something happens to where rooftop solar goes off, we get cloud cover over this town, and we have to switch to our conventional utility grade power, it's gonna be a heck of a swing on the system. And then it's gonna cause everybody else, because anything that's excess in the system is being sold. Okay, so that's what happens. In other words, we have to be really careful that we don't over budget our rooftop solar to where we got 40 or 50%, and all of a sudden a storm cloud comes over in the wintertime and shuts all that off. We got to pick that load up as a city utility, and we're not going to be able to do it. The one that I kept harping about years ago, which was a really good case study, was Hawaii, the big island of Hawaii. They're running on diesel generators. When solar came on and they started putting it on and pushing it, they got up to 42%, and they had basically a blackout, and the whole system collapsed because the generators couldn't pick it up.
In Texas was another example with wind. Wind, when the big winter, they went down. So it's all the renewables we just have to be careful with, but it also leads us into, I believe we're trying to look at the infrastructure. And so I think we've got twofold, if I understand correctly. So that's another thing with the substations being rebuilt, is we've got to understand what backup power we might have to have online. And if Hoover does start declining, Hoover's, as Greg has pointed out in the past, Hoover's what is right there to allow us to connect. It's got the spinning reserves. And without that spinning reserves, then it's more problematic. You would definitely have to have contract. But so we've got like I said, twofold. We have to understand what we would have to purchase to back that up. Well, it's threefold really. You've got more people that are on solar, and then we've got to figure out how we're paying for our infrastructure, because now they're only paying for what they use and only paying, they're not paying as much, but they still got to have the infrastructure when it's needed and off peak in most cases. And then we've got to figure out what our infrastructure needs are. So do we need more voltage or other aspects to cover it.
Well, and that's where we may want to start looking at the battery backup on the newer systems, because that could work to our benefit, because if they've got batteries charged up and if they lose, if cloud cover takes them off the system, they can backfeed into their home at least. or possibly into
The
house.
problem with that is the cost is much more because
Oh, I
it's
know,
not,
it is.
because it's not gonna be grid tied. It's
Yeah,
gonna be
it's-
standalone. And now the problem is if you get some monkey in there that messes with stuff and then backfeeds that circuit into our utility grid because he doesn't like the way things are working, because there's no battery system I've seen yet for a house that'll pick up the whole house.
Well, no, but the electronics are such that they can work around that as well, so. it's-
But I want to make sure that we don't injure one of our people out in the field doing that because they think there's a power outage someplace else.
So then, we'd have to limit the number of people that can contract and get solar power. So all of a sudden, we'd say nobody can purchase it in the city anymore.
And that's where Mr. Krantz was recommending pausing the solar program versus shutting it down, because if our demand goes up in the future, then we can reopen that back up.
And I think what we might want to do is a suggestion is that, and I guess we have to figure out how the workshops, we've had one workshop with the public, and we might look at something like that again. So after we meet with the Silver State, maybe we can look at sometime in the spring, having a public workshop and discussing that. So we can talk about this and then get their input and say, because again, we're not trying to shut anything down or saying we can't do it. We're just looking at the facts and logistics. That's what we're trying to do.
Well, we're trying to make sure we don't overburden our system to where we wind up collapsing it. And the thing is if you take and you put out that we're gonna be curtailing solar, we're gonna be pausing solar rooftop, I recommend that the city gets their projects done in order and get their house cleaned up before we start throwing stones at somebody else. Because Boulder City in Nevada was one of the last communities to put rooftop solar from contractors into the facility because it wasn't cost effective. And the one contractor that's doing a lot of it wants to get more money per kilowatt hour credit for solar so he can sell more systems. Well, the thing is that as soon as you become a generator with solar, you're on a different rate for money being credited to your account than if you're a purchaser of electricity through the system. Batteries are a great idea, but I don't want the city involved in maintaining customers' batteries when something goes funky or wonky. You call your own contractor out to come out and fix it. And that's the problem I'm trying to do. In other words, they got a lot of people that are wanting to put big battery systems in commercial and utility grade battery systems. But I've seen a couple of them catch fire with Edison, and I'll tell you what, you can't put them out. Boulder City does not have the equipment to put out a battery fire with some of the batteries that they have here. So you're also looking at that from a standpoint of, okay, I'll play devil's advocate. If you've got a solar system on your house, I know a couple of people are on council that do, the city has to know it's there. And then if you put a battery backup in there, the fire department had better darn near know that it's there, because that is a whole different thing when you throw water on something like that. And so now you got the old problem of, I'm going to stand back and watch it burn till it burns itself out. And that's not what the fire department's there for. They're to protect life and property. But that's the problem, is you got a lot of people in here trying to bootleg stuff in, not notify the city of it, and then when it goes sideways, they call for help. And that's not something we're in the business of doing.
So again, if Scott brings a lot of the details to us, now is that December or January? Because that next December is our next meeting.
Yeah, and it's all based on his availability, so I'm gonna keep in communication with him and
Okay.
see if we can get him out.
Okay, because I guess basically, if we had a public meeting, we might want to put together like a fact sheet or something.
Yeah,
So if
he
we
could help us answer a lot of those questions, and then we could put the fact sheet together, and I could run it by him, make sure we're addressing everything appropriately. And
So it's not well, it depends. It's unfortunately what we're hearing is it probably does need to be done sooner than later. And so it's another one we're talking months and not years that we need to sort of work this out, where if we can get a fact sheet, then again, Howard would make sure we'd answer all your questions too, so we're not make sure we answered your questions. But there's a lot of aspects to it that we're trying to get understanding too, to figure out what we need to do. But so now, we were talking about that. So the infrastructure, there was talk about having a consultant review our infrastructure. I think we mentioned something about that at one of our meetings. Do you know anything, get a chance to find anything about that?
No, I haven't yet.
Okay.
But yeah, we need to do more of a master plan. We've done a few different studies and a few different plans, but need to have a master plan.
Okay. Yeah, because I think that would be one of the things to also explain to council, because you've got, we got to be careful with security, but it's still pretty basic. You've got power coming in from this, and Ned, make sure that I don't say anything wrong, but you've got power coming in from the substation, from Meade substation, and then you've got power coming up through Boulder City and to the areas when we've got to figure out what all the infrastructure is, and we're not missing anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, these substations, if we're putting in the proper transformer and the proper equipment and all that to cover this, and then I think as another point was brought up, let's see, what is when you're doing it's not the breakers, but if you've got automatic shut off and just.
Sensor switch, switch, circuit breakers, I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Reclosures. Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
In the substation, right.
Yeah, so there's the things that I'm not sure how much Boulder City has, and we hasn't necessarily had it, but is solar or the thing gonna make that be an issue? So those are things that I think there's more equipment out there that we might be missing, since since we're not having we've lost a little bit of our staff.
Well, solar's come a long ways in the last 5 or 10 years. It's much, much better than it was, but especially in California, they've kind of reinvented the wheel on some of that. So they've got a lot of safety measures in place, and the industry kind of tends to follow California's lead, I think, on a lot of that stuff. So most of us out there, we just need to make sure we're on the same page with them.
Mm-hmm.
Eileen, had we had another issue on the IRP that we wanted to bring up? Okay, anybody else have anything on the IRP?
No, I was just looking at the next topic, which was 5.
Okay, I'll go, let me just finish out, because I think so I did bring up, again, I didn't write it down, I should have, Josh, the data that we get the electrical and the cost and the amount of energy. What's that called again? I should know.
I think you're talking about the COBC?
COPC?
COBC.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So, I don't think could we get I think I can't remember what, you sent that out at one time, I'm not sure if everybody got it, I'm not sure how many years we have of it. We probably want 2 or 3 years at least, because we're gonna need to, again, combine the 16 months to, compared to calendar year and fiscal year. But I think that has some pretty good data. And then because I guess it would be, is that something that we can do quarterly, or what would be good to sort of get an update on power? Sort of what we use and stuff. Marvis said last time, because he scared everybody by reversing it, and it was 52, I guess, 52 megawatts is what we had for the peak. And I think that's good information for the council committee to have. So I guess that's once a year, unless something comes up, but the power might be something different. Go ahead, Ned.
Well, I know that when I was here 12 years ago, that we peaked at about 56 megawatts. And typically 150 million kilowatt hours, I think, something like that a year. But according to this, we're down to about 52,000 or something like that, 152 million kilowatt hours a year. So I know our peak's down in the 52 megawatt range. So we're actually going in the right direction as far as WAPA wants to see, as far as where we're going with our conservation programs anyway. And that's usually what the IRP is all about, is how we're doing with conservation.
Yep.
So I think we're headed in the right direction as far as they're concerned anyway.
I think there's a certain amount of data, and again, for Dan, I think it had some questions and stuff for the new, and we sort of got, at one point, it wasn't quite as bad as a fire hose, but a little bit of information the very first year. and I'm not sure we brought some of that information, so maybe some of it's on us is to try to remember, but I think part of it, how do we organize some of the data that's useful? Again, so maybe in the water conservation, but I'll just lead in really quickly, is okay, how much water do we use and how much of the big things like that. So Raftillus had a lot of that information in it, but it wasn't easily shown. And it was a lot of different spreadsheets to go through. It wasn't in their major report. Yeah, so if it's some of that stuff, I guess, as we go through, like the IRP and water conservation, I think that would be handy to have some of the data, and I'm just trying to figure out what's reasonable to ask.
Okay. Yeah, let me look, Josh and I will look into that, and then we'll be able to provide a better recommendation, because I'm not sure what's gonna be the best rate at this rate right now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so there's nothing else on the IRP, then we will close out, item number 4 and go to item number 5 and discussion regarding water conservation goals, objectives, and rates. Did you want to start that, Keegan, or is that more of a discussion among us?
I don't really have much of an update on that. I think if you guys want to discuss it, I know the last time we met, I just said we're looking at smaller scale projects in-house, landscaping, ways to conserve water. Large scale, we're looking at possible turf removal. We're actually working with some of the golf courses, and then we're working on some of the unused landscaping that's around some of the city buildings. But other than that, I don't really have an update. We're just continuing to work forward on that.
Now, see, was that the one that was July? You thought by January you'd probably have more of a presentation or something?
Yeah, the golf courses might be January, February. For some of the city facilities, I'm thinking probably about the same timeline.
Okay. Go ahead, Greg.
The flood control district pulled out a lot of sod going down the valley. How many square feet do you think they got out? Are they getting credit for that, or are we getting credit for it?
I believe they're getting credit for that because they're paying for the project.
And so does that help us on the bottom line of the project total?
I'll have to ask on that.
Because the other thing I'm thinking about is with all the irrigation that was there that's now gone, what are we saving in acre feet or feet of water?
Yeah, that's our biggest savings there, is we're not irrigating a lot of that.
Because that was potable, wasn't it?
That might be part of the raw that we were using down there.
Well, that's 75% cost versus 100% cost. I was just curious to know what the numbers were, because if we get it lost, Yep. I mean, we can look at a water meter and see, as long as the water meter's spinning, but, we should be able to look at it and compare it from last year to this year, especially if it's all shut off.
Yep. Let me look into that.
Yeah, that's good to go in our favor as far as reductions that we're doing, because that's a fair amount of water that's been reduced down there, so. It'd be interesting to see what that is.
There is one thing that I wanted to ask for your guys' input. I guess in years past, we had someone on staff that basically their sole duty was to take care of water waste complaints or to do inspections on water waste. That might be a part of our plan moving forward, is the recommendation to hire somebody to be basically daily looking into people wasting water, watering on the wrong days. Because right now we have one guy that does it, but he also has 20 other tasks that he does. And
He's the guy that used to do that.
the guy that used to do it no longer works for the city. Skip's here.
He was when he came on board. It was part of it.
Yep, that was part of his duties. Now he's taken on the SCADA system, a whole slew of other.
Well, that makes sense. Sure, that makes sense.
But Skip was the one telling me about a previous employee that would show up at 7 a.m., get on his bicycle, and he'd ride around town looking for people wasting water. And now it's even more critical that people aren't watering on the wrong days, and there's not leaks everywhere, so that might be a recommendation.
I guess we'd want to be a little, I see both ways of that. I see it being handy, especially for somebody that's wasting a lot of water. And sometimes as long as we say, okay, we're going to, try to warn somebody or something, we're not going to go straight to fines.
No, yeah, and Skip doesn't do that right now. He'll send out a letter to the person letting them know that they might have a possible leak or they're watering on the wrong days. I don't know if he's actually fined anybody, but that option is there if we need to go there.
Because I think part of it is still a misunderstanding what the city does, but it's a combination. Some of it's, you've got sprinklers that they're just right up against the curb.
Yep.
And no matter what you do, you can't reduce that. Yeah. And so if you got somebody that doesn't have lawn anymore, they're gonna turn people in for that you're still trying and you're not doing it. So that's part of a problem, because it's still a lot of people, I still hear it, and I want to walk around to see a lot of water that seems to be wasted by the city. And part of it is it's being done to do new sod, and so that's the time, and some of it's broken sprinklers, and I guess there's a new system you guys have that you can take a picture and send it, and then they can do it. Mm-hmm. So I guess before we would go there, I see it, like I said, I see it both ways. I see it as a positive and negative, because if we go there right away, then you're getting accusatory, then you got neighbor against neighbor if you're not careful. Yeah. And so I would sort of like to see what we can do first. Again, fact sheets to understand what we're doing and understand, first off, I think in the water conservation, I think we want the public to understand that we have 18,000 kilowatt acre feet of water for Boulder City. We're only using 9 or 10. So to a certain extent, we're already conserving. I think I'm going to beat the drum every time that, if we conserve too much, we're just giving water to SNWA so they can build more houses over there. So I totally agree we need to do our share. I totally agree with that, but I think we just want to be careful with it. And another thing too, it'd be interesting to see, get a plumber's view of it, because I know in certain cases that if you reduce too much of your water, even in your house, now you've got plumbing issues, because you're not putting the proper amount of, you're not getting your sewer done. A lot of places were using these waterless urinals, and they had to get rid of them because they didn't work. I had some lower flow things in my house, and I was having plugs in my shower. And then I put an older sprinkler, but anyway, a lot of times if you get the amount of water going down the sewer, you've got a better thing. So I don't take long showers, so I conserve that way. But if you don't have the right amount of water going down your drain, so these are things, if we can just get the right facts out there, I think it's better to start that way.
I think too, I've looked at just randomly like Google Earth or something like that, to look at an aerial of Boulder City now as opposed to even 5 or 10 years ago. There's a lot more yards without grass. I mean, we've gone to desert landscaping. A lot of people have converted on their own going that direction. So I think before we get too aggressive with new programs, remembering that water sales are a revenue source for the city, and what we don't use gets used in Vegas, and we could lose that. So we have to be careful what we do and how we do it, and because some people on their own are happy to go that direction. Yep.
Are you saying we're gonna have to maybe change the name of Clean Green to something else? Top Water Conserver?
Do we know what our gallon consumption is, gallon person per day? Do we know what the goals are are the goals being set by somebody or SNWA or?
SNWA was telling, Josh may know these numbers, but SNWA was saying that they wanted everybody to cut 20%. Well, if you cut 20% off of what we're allowed to use, we're already below that.
Yeah, we are.
And the other thing Eileen has pointed out several times is that SNWA automatically includes their water going back to the lake. We don't have that, so ours is automatically higher than they take the internal water usage and they just take it out. So they only show the water use, if I understand correctly, for Las Vegas. And so Boulder City and Las Vegas are apples and oranges. So when SNWA says this is what we want this is what Las Vegas is at, and this is what Boulder City is at, it's not comparable. So we still can conserve, and I totally agree with that, but we have to keep apples and apples, not apples and oranges or fruit salad.
I mentioned this to you a week or so ago. How many water reservoirs do we have?
Three tanks, and then we got 2 underground storage, and we got a raw water storage up there as well. Twin fives.
Mike?
Well, yeah, well, you know, we have the 2 on the hill, we have 1 down in Hemway Valley. We have 2 underground twin fives up on Canyon Road. There's, I think, another maybe twin 5 that's raw water up there as well, next to the upper elevation one. And that's it as far as, there's one down on Buchanan, but that's for WAPA. It's underground as well.
But we don't keep them full, correct?
That's correct, and that's based off of the turnover. If we fill them all the way up, we don't use enough water, and the water essentially goes bad.
So what I'm saying is that Boulder City is conserving as much as it needs to, really, and everything that we conserve goes over the hill and they build houses and expand. If we were to fill our reservoirs and keep them full, we'd at least have a backup for if and when we had to really reduce further, then we have something for our citizens. So we should use our allocation, but store it, save it, run it through the reservoir.
You can't do that. The quality of the water would change so much that you would be in violation of the water quality rules. You would make what's called trihalometane, and you'd be off the charts. Because with the climate we have here, you generate so much THM that you'd be in trouble that way. So you have to have enough in there just to have the turnover and enough for fire capacity, and that's what you have to have. Otherwise, you're going to get into trouble. Even most of our tanks are underground, correct?
Yeah, the big ones are, just $1 million, $2 million, I think.
Right, and those upper ones, even in these up here, that you can create that in the summertime because of just the chemistry of the water. So you have a good thought, but it's going to lead to a detriment of the water quality, and then we'll be in trouble for that, and you'll have to pay fines, and you'll have to report to the citizens that you're giving them crappy water.
Oh, bummer.
Good idea, I like it.
I mean, the idea has some thoughts, but there's other things that are going to interfere with that thought train. I won't let you do that.
But this will be one that we will be able to have some time to discuss before it goes to a resolution or something like that, right?
Yeah, yep, we have time.
Is someone going to take away our water? I mean, we have a certain amount of water, right? It's our water, right? But I mean, if it's allocated to us, how can we reduce, would that be reduced to us?
The way I understand it is we surrendered our Colorado River contract to SNWA. And that's our water allotment. SNWA, because we're a partner with them, is now utilizing that contract for water. So I want somebody to prove me wrong, because I've asked for the documents for 2 years.
It'd be nice to know. I mean, if we have an allocation, we have an allocation, it would seem like.
We do have a sufficient allocation, and we're only using 1/3 of the allocation.
You should have an allocation that supports the community that we're trying to stay at. We're trying to stay at 15,000 people, there should be an allocation.
But the Colorado River Pact that was written between Boulder City and the Colorado River and the state agency is not being honored. We surrendered it to SNWA. We have to look at that. That's a legal thing that has to be looked at.
No, I agree with that,
But I'm in agreement with everybody here. We've conserved water, and we're continuing to conserve water. And now SNWA is going to come in and look at our water treatment facility plant, and they're going to come in and say, hey, we'll do the improvements for you if you give us the outflow, and we'll pump it over the hill.
Yeah, but our outflow is going to be pittance to what?
No, because Henderson is now coming around the mountain, and they're going to want a pumping plant to pump the effluent from there up the hill and over into Henderson.
No, luckily, I think that because you had asked earlier, so hopefully that's dead, hopefully. But, okay, but hopefully that's dead. So the next one is but it's a similar aspect, so basically, we could lose water. Keegan just left, so I'm not sure if Josh, if you'd understand what's going on, but my understanding is that, okay, so if we do a new, treatment facility, and you know more about that than we do, but then if we pump it up and we put it in the golf course, okay, so then the water that we were using for the golf course is no longer needed. So SNWA is gonna take that water and
The agreements that the reclaimed water, people that do sell reclaimed water, that they get that amount of water back without any, it's just a one-for-one exchange.
No, what I'm saying is, so, yeah, you are correct, but what I'm saying is that if we don't use it, that's what we're all saying, if we don't use it, SNWA will. And so now we have a certain amount of water that we're conserving, because we're gonna be using our effluent instead of, raw or potable water. So we will no longer need our allocation anymore. We will be down to what, theoretically 1,000 or so acre feet of water if we do the effluent. I'm assuming it's something, it's a reasonable amount.
Way more than that, but yeah, we're gonna be out that amount, yeah.
Right, and so SNWA then would be borrowing it, that's what the contract says, but, ownership is 90% of, not ownership, but there's a good chance, if they built up to, and they say they have it, they're gonna say, well, you don't need it, we're not gonna give it back to you. So then we could have a problem in the future because they have the water and we don't. And so that's what we're concerned with is, like I said, we want to conserve, we want to be economically and environmentally sound. But at the same time, we can go overboard, give it away, and then we won't get it back.
Have to be careful, yeah.
So that's why, again, we'll probably need a public meeting. We need a workshop that we can really flush this stuff out and get some fact sheets and stuff to really. And so, if we can keep working on it. So that's why having it on here, then we can always remember to bring things up and go. And it's just, again, I think all we're doing is trying to get the facts. We're not trying to mandate anything. We're just trying to understand the facts so we know what's safe for Boulder City and what's best for Boulder City.
Well, another issue with allocation is they can allocate as much as they want, but if we're not getting the water into the Colorado River, you can't allocate what's not coming in. And then when they require people to cut back, they're gonna have you cut back from what you're using. And since we're not using much, I don't know what our allocation is and how much we use, but let's say we're only using 50% of our allocation, they're not going to make you reduce from your allocation, they're gonna make you reduce from your use.
Exactly, exactly. And that's what we're trying to say is we've already reduced some, and so that's what we're trying to get. I think we want to set a precedent.
Yeah, and that's kind of where my idea about the reservoir came in, because if we can use some of that water, save some of that water somehow, or,
But,
yeah.
I think the goals of the water conservation is to get people back to what you would use for consumptive use and not for irrigation use.
Yeah.
And so consumptive use and irrigation use, I think we need to look at one of the things we need to look at is what our average per month, per season kind of usage is. Because you'll see that in the summertime, we probably double our usage of water, and that water is doing nothing but watering lawns. And that is complete waste of water. You're in the desert, so you're going to always get that argument that why do you need to have that green lawn and to be using that much water just to keep your water green, your lawns green.
Well,
consumptive use is probably what, and I'm just putting this out there, consumptive use is probably what they want us all to get to.
But the problem is right now, and I did a study, reflective heat from desert landscaping is a 20% adder to air conditioning cost. So you have to not just look at the water, you have to look at other utilities that are coming into the house. And then when you do that, and you don't have your green zone or buffer around your house, now you're using more electricity. Now will the electricity system handle the additional load? I mean, you know, we talk water, we talk power, but I watched a thing the other day. The people said that gas stoves are not efficient, so they took the gas stove out of a house and put an electric stove in. The electrician came over and says, you don't have enough power to run the electric stove, so now you've got to put an outlet in the wall to run the electric stove, and he got the cable back to the power center, and he goes, you don't have enough power in your power panel to run the electric stove, now we got to do a service change out. And then that goes all the way up into the utility system. So I understand that we're having problems with water and we need to conserve, but what I don't want to see is we get down to where everybody's doing great and conserving, and they come back and say we need another 20% cut. The next thing is you just have to move.
But still, we need to look at records and show what we're using. I mean, I know for like example, the city of Henderson, the water in the winter months, they would use 40 million gallons of water a day. In the summertime, from summertime use, it went up to 110 million gallons of water a day. No one moved in, town size stayed the same. No snowbird, maybe yeah, there's some snowbirds that come in possibly, but not that many. So all that water went to was basically irrigation purposes. And that is a complete waste of water. Now, before we argue any of this though, we need to have some records here to show what we're doing. Because you may be right. We may be fully conservative. That'd be great. If our consumptive use and our irrigation uses in the summer were not that great of a difference, then we have an argument. But if you're as much as like Henderson was, 60, 70% of the water in the summertime was used for irrigation, you got a problem.
But part of that is quality of life too. I mean, I know air conditioning. Air conditioning changed the world. When I was a kid, nobody had air conditioning. I lived here in Boulder City, and everybody had grass. And you look at an aerial photo of Boulder City, and all you saw was green. Every house, backyard, front yard, street, parkways were all elm trees, shade every place. And then air conditioning came along, and you started seeing that go away. So yeah, you can do it, but the environment is a lot different when you don't have grass and shade and trees and things like that. It becomes not nearly as desirable a place to live. In Boulder City, part of the thing that makes it nice is clean, green Boulder City meant green was the trees and the grass. And they passed the growth ordinance in 1980, seriously limiting the growth, primarily to preserve that lifestyle, but also the water and the power allocation that we got from the dam. And that was where it came from, and that's pretty much what they've done all those since then. That's why we haven't seen Boulder City turn into Henderson or Las Vegas. I remember when Del Webb approached the city back in the 80s, wanted to build Sun City from all the way out to Railroad Pass on the south side of the highway. And the city said, nope, we don't want that. We want to stay where we're at. But anyway, it's a good point, but we need to realize that grass and water are a nice advantage to Boulder City, and one of the nicer things that I think, anyway.
But I think so I think still we're saying it is that we have conserved by the low growth. We have conserved. They need to take it. So we've conserved them out where over the hill they just keep growing, and they're not taking into consideration the resources. So but they want us to do more.
Many of the new subdivisions have to go to xeriscape too. So they are taking that into consideration.
Yeah, and
we've done that here.
Yeah, right, and those are some of the things we need to consider, even at that you need to go to drip irrigation and you need to go to xeriscapes.
And xeriscapes in the front yard, with new houses, most likely. But again, with families and little kids, you can't just say, well, I'm going to take the kids to the park every day and have grass. So having at least grass in the backyard is something to think about. There's different reasons, and I think right now, the biggest thing we're saying is not right away. Next year, I don't want everybody taking for half of Boulder City to take their lawns out. And so if we get too carried away, that's because that would be to a certain extent, following your logic, not saying you're asking for, at least hopefully not, to reduce that. If it's double, then you're going to have to take a lot of lawns out to get down.
That's true.
And I'm not sure. And then if you do that, so everybody's conservative, we get down, I think Eileen or somebody brought that up, so we go down 20 or 30%, they're probably not gonna give us credit for that 30%.
That's
They're
where
gonna
we
say,
come, we have to
next
argue,
time.
we have to argue to maintain an allocation that can't be taken away from us.
We have to figure
Whoever
it out.
gave that away was foolish.
Well, we didn't give it away, we just said that we,
Somebody gave it away, somebody let it happen.
well, basically, it was,
So whoever let it happen, it happened.
it was a negotiated aspect for us to
But
get.
then we had
to
poor
get-
negotiators.
Well, part of the problem with that is that we basically had the old BC line and the A line, out of Hoover Dam that fed Boulder City.
Right.
And when well, the A line still, actually both lines are probably still there, but they're buried, but they don't use them. They use the A line to take water back down to the Park Service. But at that point, we had basically put in the first SNWA feed back in the early 1970s. And that's when we got water from them, and that provided the backup. For a long time, there was talk about preserving the original Boulder City lines to provide Boulder City a continued water supply out of Hoover Dam. But that turned out probably not a good idea, but that's what happened. They basically did away with that idea. But so there was kind of a history there for that. But yeah, originally that's kind of where it was at anyway.
Let's also remember the water filtration too. That's because they didn't want to, they didn't want to redo the filter plant, so we agreed with using their facility. Because I think what happened is we reduced a lot of our buy-in costs, so to speak, by doing what we did. So we're just trying to figure out, I don't think it was such a bad deal as long as we can work it out. But, so these are great discussions, and I think hopefully we all realize we're just debating here, not trying to argue or stuff. And so, but I think these are things we want to have, and we might have to have with the public or something to say there's pros and cons, and just figuring out what to do. But, because the thing too, if I understand correctly, is that we have one of the priority water, one of ours, because we got some of our water from SNWA, but the original water allocation that came with Boulder City has a priority to it. And I think we might even be above Vegas.
Yeah, we were. I think Boulder City had an allocation, the town site had an allocation of water as well as power.
So we would still have to take a cut, and we should in the shortages, but we wouldn't be cut if they just say, well, everybody has to be cut by what Vegas is doing. No, we don't. We've got certain percentages. So I think we just got to remember we need to push back on some of this stuff. We're not part of the valley, and I think that's one thing that we want to realize. We want to be socially responsible, but at the same time be realistic. And so there's a lot of facts we need to, so I think that's where we need some help. The other one, I think Eileen had mentioned it at one point too, was that James Adams had mentioned that the state was trying to had to write the actual, what the turf was going to be, the non-usable turf. Is that, so has that been done yet, do you know?
Yeah, as far as I know, that was approved in the last legislation session.
Well, no, the last legislative session, my understanding said it had to be done, but then they set up a committee to write what actually was going
Oh, yeah, then I don't know if that's been done or not.
Okay.
Most likely not, but it was my understanding that whatever they come up with, they have their term, but they're gonna put more of the detail into it, but that's gotta be done by 26.
Right. So I think before we get too carried away, if we take the low-hanging fruit and say this isn't gonna hurt Boulder City and start looking at that, then showing good faith, I agree. But before we get too carried away, like for instance, stripping all the grass away from right across the street from the police department, maybe we take part of it out and then figure out what they're doing, because that, again, you're doing two things. You've got a little bit of it can be utilized by the public, and some of it can be it should theoretically it is reducing your heat aspect. So it'd be nice if that's what the turf says, then we do it. But if it doesn't say it, I don't want to have it done and say, oh well, we got carried away. So okay, so yes, I guess if somebody could look into that for the future, then the turf rule would be handy. So so now we've got the solar, and I guess this conservation is the same type thing, right? We're going to want to do that in the spring, I suppose. Probably we probably won't have the data to do anything major, but if we just keep it on the agenda, I guess we can keep going forward with it. The one thing, so I'd ask about the rates on this, and so you were talking about usage. And that's sort of a good lead into the rates that we had mentioned before, and so I think it's getting in a long night, but I think I just want to be able to talk among everybody, make sure we're bringing it out and looking at it. We have three rate issues. Two of them are water. One of them is water conservations. Two of the others. So, can I ask about the residential Schedule B here? Is that proper in this thing? So we need to bring that back up because so the water Schedule B, which states that multiple units with 1 meter is everybody's paying the meter cost. That's the way I read the calculation. So can we get that looked at? How fast can that be brought up again and reevaluated?
Can we put that as a deliverables tracker item?
Sure.
Oh, what do you want exactly, though?
I guess we had asked to review it, and they said no, they weren't going to reduce it, and we weren't given a good reason why it wouldn't be, that they wouldn't change it. So I guess the first question is, can we reevaluate it? Can we get somebody in here that actually has the authority to say yay or nay to it?
Are you familiar, Josh, with the problem?
No, I remember exactly what you're talking about. I was just asking, like, what was the ask?
What we're asking for is everybody's telling us there's a rule or a law within Boulder City that says that's the way they're going to do it and they're not going to change it. And we're saying, no, that's not right because there's only 1 meter serving the property. It should go to the landlord only, and the tenant shouldn't be charged an individual service charge for that same meter. And that's what Boulder City is doing now. So they're doing an unjust enrichment in the water utility side of the house by charging the landlord the water rate, the service charge, and all the tenants the service charge when they get their bill for their electric meter or water service charges on there.
Yeah, I could see that as, we could make a recommendation to the city attorney and see where she wants to go from there. That's gotta, in my eyes, that's gotta go back to council.
Well, I think it just, yeah, as long as we can bring out the facts, and then if that goes back to council, that's fine.
Yep.
But it's just a matter of it wasn't even considered to go to council last time.
Yeah, I remember last time me and Dennis, we talked to, I believe, the city attorney and the water supervisor and the utility billing supervisor, and they both agreed to leave it as is. But we can follow up and bring it back up if that's what you want.
Yeah, maybe if we need to, if that's the case, then if they could come at least explain why. We didn't get an explanation why.
Okay.
So it needs to be an explanation why. The other one is the other one that's been outstanding is that we did the $10 decrease in water, but we said we wanted to review the other larger size service charges and try to reduce that. So I guess we need to figure out where we can start discussing that as a group in our meetings. I guess we would start discussing it and then try to go forward with it. Because the one suggestion would be the easy way to do it is that I'm pretty positive that the service charge, I believe, was raised. I have to go back, but I think that it was raised. So I'm trying to think if that's the service charge or the other one. One was raised 104%, commercial was raised 84%. And if that's the service charge is that much, then that doesn't make sense because it's just, service charge should be at cost. And so by raising it as a percentage doesn't make any sense. So the easy fix is to take I believe the last percentage for the service charge was 17%. If we just reduced it by 17%, then we would get closer because it had 3 raises. 3 raises, I believe. And so if you did one of the last raises and just reduced it and then continued to review it, that would be a way to look at it.
Yeah, we can look at that with finance. I believe we would plug that into the rate model and see if we could do it that way. But just off the top of my head, just without having the data in front of me, it probably wouldn't be a good idea because Raftellus, they did a lot of due diligence in the rate reduction that we already did, and that wasn't recommended by them, as far as I can remember. So we could plug it into the model and see, but just off the top of my head, I doubt that we'll be able to.
Well, Raftellus had a bigger cut than 17%. They had like a 30% cut, I think, or something. And so we didn't recommend the 30%. So I'm talking about half of what they did. So I don't understand why.
Well, we'll look into it and plug the numbers in to the rate model and see.
Yeah, because again, they were doing a general United States aspect, and that's one thing I keep on pushing is we want to look at what is right for Boulder City. Boulder City is a municipality in that all of our costs are at cost for the municipalities. There aren't too many cities that have that, and I don't think Raftellus took that into account in all of their aspects. So even if we go through their model, I think that's the way to go through it. I don't have a problem with that. And so again, I guess that can be towards the end of the year, but it would be nice to be able to get it for the budget, so to figure it out. And the same type, so the last one is that at cost again, and we're talking about conservation, is I think right now the water cost is a specific cost. It's $2.39 for the first 8,000 gallons, and then $2.50 something, I believe, for the next 17 or something like that. So if we can figure out what a normal household would use, it would be nice to set that at least. I think you'd want to set two rates. One with a normal household and then one maybe with a little larger. So you're saying the first rate would be associated at cost, and what is that cost being? And I'm pretty sure it's less than $2. So, but even if you put it around $2, that's still a savings for a lower income family. And to work with that. And then you might have to add another tier or two, and then at the high end, then you're gonna maybe make a bigger cost for conservation purposes. So those are things I'd like to look at in the near future too, because I think that would help with conservation. So, because nobody, and maybe rightfully so, nobody really wants to reduce the cost of water, but I think we want to keep in consideration the lower income families. What can we do for them?
Yeah, that's something we could definitely look into, but it just off the top of my head, thinking out loud, that would probably be very difficult to achieve, having separate rates for different classes of households. That would probably be very difficult from a utility billing perspective, and just like mathematically trying to figure out like who pays what.
I'm not saying different. What I'm saying is first 8,000 gallons, we have that right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's the $2.39.
Yes.
So if we just lowered it to $2, then everybody that uses the first 8,000 gallon gets a benefit. But in most cases, it's going to help the lower.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. You're saying just
income.
that first, the 8 inch, just reducing that. Okay, that would be something we could plug in the model and see. Yeah.
Basically a fourth tier of water cost. So that's what we're looking at. So that would force people to take and be more conservative with the water as they get up higher in gallonage.
Yeah, so right, so you might, because I think we're under $3, or it might be around $3. So you might even go to a 4. I'm just going to throw a number out there, so don't worry. You might go to worst case scenario where it's $5 a gallon for extreme use. Yeah, so that's where you bring it down to cost in one area, and you say, okay, if you go way out there, then that's another thing. So I think that would be, so you're still, as Ned keeps telling us, Ned's saying we're still, water is a commodity, and it's a revenue. So to a certain extent, so people want to keep their green lawns, and if it's a really large amount, if they're willing to pay for it, maybe it's still worth it. And it's Boulder City gets an income that we can't afford to really get rid of, because we got infrastructure we still got to do, and people can still have their lawns. So I just want to bring that up because it's another one I think. So we've got to figure out, again, in the time schedules, if we want to try to do it in this budget figure, I guess we have to have it up, no later than April to have most of these things figured out. So I guess we just keep these agenda items going, then I guess can keep them looking at.
Yeah, and like I said, we can, like your suggestions of the further rate reductions on the water, we can plug those into the models and see.
Okay.
But I don't know if it'll be able to be done, because from my perspective, we kind of already reduced what we could reduce based on the rate study.
Well, no, based on the rate study, remember, the rate study said they wanted a lot more than we did.
Well, yeah, exactly. But what council already approved and what already got reduced, I'm not sure, like financially, if we should be reducing anything else. But like I said, we can plug into the model and see.
Okay, and but that's part of, we're hoping, so when you plug it in, that's one thing that we want to look at too.
Yeah, exactly.
We want to be able to see that, and that's definitely part of what our review process is, and it is on the goals. So, okay. Anybody else on this water conservation?
No, I was just gonna make the comment that, about the rates in the lower income families and that kind of thing. And I think if we have a better idea of what truly are our revenues from the utilities, and we take a good look at that, then we can say whether or not the city can afford to do that, because our revenues are so much more than our expenses in the utilities.
And I guess, so this might be going off a little bit, but if we're not gonna get to the budget for a little bit, it does relate to the rate, it looks like I still need to understand how much extra we've received from the solar plants and stuff for water charges, but it looks like the city is under budgeting for water in the last 2 years at least. They've come in at about 9 million, 9.7, under 10, and we've come in at 11, and so last year was 14, but we had that big increase from the solar. But I think with the water charges, I think is still around 10.5 to 11. That's what I need to understand. So if that is the case, why are we budgeting less? Because that's the case too. If we're budgeting less, then we're saying we're not going to get the money, we can't afford to do it. But if we are actually bringing the money in, then so we need to understand what we're actually bringing in on charges from the residential aspect and what we're bringing in from other like the solar and stuff that are one-time shot. Because we've had 2 or 3 of those, but I'm not sure I understand exactly how they fit in. Okay, so, okay, nothing else, then we will close item number 5 and go to item number 6. And I think the best way to do this is probably do a starting point, since we're getting late today, just to do some general comments on the CAFR Comprehensive Annual Financial Report ending June 30th, 2021. Did you have anything on that?
Yeah, you had asked me if there was a good starting point for you guys to focus on relating to the utilities. From talking to finance, it's not broken out into each individual utility. It's the utility as a whole. So there wasn't really you guys should focus on pages 30 to 40. And so there wasn't a good location for you guys to focus on.
I did a quick, I'd like Eileen and Marty to make a few comments, but I can do one thing referring to that, is I did a quick search on it, and utilities actually came up in more of the pages than I thought it would. So there is a little bit of extra data there, but most of the data is in the report, is on page 130 and 131. And it is not, from what I can tell, that's where I could use some help, is it's not complete data. I can't find the capital amount, where the capital is there, and it has the interest for the debt, water debt, but it does not have the principal for the water debt. So if I'm understanding page 130 and 131, it's saying here's what was the final amount, but if you don't have some of these factors, how can you say that's the final amount? So that was some of my concerns. Eileen and Marty, did you have anything?
Well, the thing that I would bring up is, the people that are running the city, the department managers, are they getting enough information to make decisions on revenues and incomes and whether we can afford to hire more people? That's come up several times tonight. I think that there isn't enough detailed information in monthly reports. I mean, monthly we see what's in the what's called the city manager's report. And then when the when Hinton-Burdick comes in, they make a whole bunch of adjustments to those numbers because of it's not based on accrual accounting. And a couple of 3 months ago, I sent an email to the finance department, and one of the things that got back was Munis does not have reporting capabilities. Well, you know, we might be saving the finance department money and time if we looked at different software, or how that accounting, the monthly reports can be done directly from information from Munis. And I think we've brought that up before, and nothing has changed. And then, you know, I ask questions about revenues and expenditures, and I got a response back. It says, the city is required to report its financial information in accordance with governmental accounting standards and does not allow for cash basis. Well, they're reporting their revenues on cash, because if you look at the city manager's report for July, the revenues for the electric department are a credit because of adjustments that Hinton-Burdick did in the audit. And, you know, this person goes on to say how long it takes them to do that. And I just think that there's different things that need to be taken into consideration in the software and how things are reported. But basically, I mean, I really wonder, you know, you're the acting city utility person right now. You know, do you look at finances and making any of your decisions of how you run your department? And do any of the other managers do the same? And in the reports that are put out, are they helping them make those decisions? And, you know, I could go on, but it's getting late, and the finance department isn't here to answer the questions anyway. So I'll just leave it at that.
But I guess, Keegan, you were nodding your head. I guess so I don't mean to put you on the spot. Well, I guess I am putting you on the spot. But so the reports that are put out, is the information there that will help you, or do you have to wait for the one time a year where they get all the breakouts?
The information that I use comes from Munis, but I'm more checking where my year-to-date is for our operating and maintenance, and then where we're at on CIP projects. But a lot of that comes right from our engineering department on invoices and our where we're at for that project. So I don't use this CAFR. Yeah, I've looked through it, but I don't. It's not beneficial to me to run the utilities or public works.
I don't think anybody would use a CAFR, like something that's comprehensive, to run day-to-day operational stuff. It's not for that.
It's designed with, well, I guess, do you know what the major design is, to make sure I'm not
For the CAFR, in my opinion, it's just a end of the fiscal year report on the total financials of the entire city. It's not something that anybody would use operationally to like run the day-to-day. It's just a big report for the end of the year when everything closed for the most part.
Well, are there any monthly reports that come out that you think helps the city make decisions on how to run the rest of the year, or the actuals compared to budget?
What I do on at least twice a month, I'll go into Munis and I'll print out what the actuals are for public works. I'll do it for admin, engineering, streets, landscape, building maintenance, and now utilities. We have the admin, water, sewer, electric. So I look at all that and I see where we're at percentage-wise. If something jumps out at me that, yeah, we're in the 5th month, we just started the 5th month, but we've already spent 75% of this, then I start asking questions. But I do that every couple weeks. only takes me about 10 minutes to pull them all, and I just keep tracking them. So the city manager's report, that's information that I've pretty much already looked at. Like Carol puts together the stuff for the utility projects and the CIP projects. I keep a close watch on that because I'm involved in those projects. The city manager's report may be helpful for more of the finance department or maybe some more of the other departments, but I'm paying attention to what the guys are using their money for over at the shops and making sure that they're taking care of what they need to take care of.
Okay, thank you. We're just trying to get better understanding and stuff. Eileen?
Well, looking at this, a point that Joshua said was you didn't think we could reduce any rates, but if you look at our revenue is exceeding what our budgeted is, and I think Marty mentioned this, if that's happening, then yes, we can reduce our rates. And that's what I see when I look at this CAFR. Our total, right there at the bottom, income before capital contributions and transfers, the budget expected a loss of $672,000, but we actually had income of $10 million.
Right, I completely understand that, but,
So if we're bringing in that much more money than we're budgeting, we've got some issues with our budgeting.
One thing to note on this is, and I didn't help put this together in any way, so I don't want to speak for finance, but what I'm gaining out of this is I know when we were preparing our budgets last year, everybody got slashed because we didn't know how our finances were going to be because of COVID. So I know everybody took a hit across the board. Most everybody took a hit across the board. So I'm guessing that's why their budgeted amounts are lower. I don't know if it's $11 million difference, but that is probably why the budgeted amounts are lower.
yeah, and also this, as far as reducing rates, this report is basically a close of a fiscal year. It doesn't show how it'll affect future years if we were to reduce rates. It's not a forecast like that.
No, but common sense
No, I
is
get what you're saying, yeah, but.
if you're making 10 million more than you're projecting, then you're making too much
No,
money.
completely agree, but like I said, this is 1 year. Like
Yeah.
to see if we can reduce rates, we need to forecast how that would affect future years. 'Cause
Correct.
The worst thing we could do is reduce rates, and then in the second year, we realize, oh, we really shouldn't have did that, you know?
Right.
And Raftalis, they already did that analysis to see how much we could reduce, and, you know, but we can, like I said, we can plug it in and we can see again, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess on that, I think in part of what we're trying to understand is what documents we should be looking at and spending our time on too. I think that's partly what we're trying to understand. And some of it, what I'm hearing then is two of the critical aspects would be the Raftalis, updating the Raftalis' spreadsheets and seeing what that falls out, and then seeing the budgeted, the information for the fiscal year 2023 budget. Because hopefully, if I understand, if it's the same as last year, then it's a nice breakout, and it has a couple years worth of actuals associated with that.
Yeah, it goes back, it should show you 2 years and then the actual where we're at as of now, if I remember correctly. So you'll see 2021, the actual for 22, and then what we're budgeting for 23.
Yeah, and I guess just in case for the future, if it is only that, it'd be nice to at least include, if we can ask for it, to include 19, because now with COVID and everything, 19 was a full year.
Yeah.
20 and 21 have had issues.
Yeah.
And so if we want to use actuals, I think it would be good to have 18 and 19.
Yeah.
But I think we need at least 19 as a guide if we're using actuals. So I think that would be something, if you could take that back to finance, if we could get the data, we want to make sure that it would be good to have fiscal year 19.
Yeah, and I'm not
included.
sure if that's just Excel spreadsheets that they produce that on. That's how I see it. So I don't know if it's Excel spreadsheets that they're producing the information or how they pull it out of Munis, but I can always ask them. I just don't know if how they produce it and how easily it is.
Okay, because, okay. So am I understanding that you were going to try, not holding you to do it, was it, so the information that, was going to the directors was most likely by the end of December, you thought?
Yeah, they always aim to do right at the end of Christmas. It's a nice little Christmas present for us to start reviewing the budget.
Ooh, Merry
They tease about that every year.
Yeah, I imagine.
But that's typically when they aim to get it out. It changes every year, whether it's a week early or 2 weeks later.
Okay, and Josh, do you have any idea that when the Raftillus thing might be updated, is that before the end of the calendar year, is that? a
I
little
can't say
further?
for sure. I know I was helping our utility billing supervisor update some stuff earlier today, and so I know finance has been working on it. But I can probably get you an answer sometime tomorrow. Maybe I can tap in with them and see where they're at with it.
Because I guess theoretically that's if we say the end of the calendar year, it'd be 2 months from, basically, so if that's feasible or not, but at least let us start looking at it and starting to understand and then doing it, because basically I think that's the thing we're trying to tap into, is to understand what documents we should be looking at to get a better understanding, so I'm not sure how much the CAFR then has, because the city manager report and the CAFR don't match. And so, if we track the city manager report, that's one thing, and if you look at the CAFR, so I'm not sure. It seems to be, and they haven't updated it yet, they do quarterly reports based on Munis, to my knowledge, and the first quarter hasn't been updated yet, at least as of yesterday, it wasn't there. So that might be one thing we have to look at, but then that's something we would have to pull ourselves, because it's not something that is put out any place besides on the website. Okay, unless anybody else has any comments, I won't take any more time on it then. Okay, so we will close out item number six, and go to item number 7. Did you have anything to start with on that, Keegan? That's the future, so yeah, to make sure I state it, so possible action, discussion and direction regarding potential agenda items for upcoming utility advisory committee meetings.
So yeah, we have discussed leaving the goals and priorities on there. Ongoing CIP, of course, the new CIP, the IRP. I essentially see leaving it the same. I don't know if you guys want to have the CAFR on there again.
I don't think we need the CAFR.
Okay.
I don't think, no, so we'll drop the CAFR.
Drop number 6, but leave everything else.
Yeah,
If we want to talk about financials on a different subject, we can always
Yes.
add it in there.
Well, it depends if we go under goals, or do we start putting in budget? Do we just put in budget? Will it be financials, which would cover quite a bit, but if you need to, I don't know if you need to talk to legal or anybody to make sure that what is the agenda says and what we can talk about.
Yeah.
Just want to be totally safe on that.
Yeah, if we're December, if you guys want to talk about it, we can have it on there, but December might be, it's going to be early for talking about the O&M because we won't have any of the information, but if you guys want to have it on there.
Well, if we just say maybe we say finance, I guess, and then if that gives us a little leeway to talk about things, that might be handy. Because if we don't have anything to talk about, we just skip it.
Will we have the minutes from the last meeting and this meeting?
Yes.
Yeah, Josh said he just got him back.
So we have both, or just the one?
That would be,
It would be last meeting and this one.
Okay.
we're fast. I should say Josh is fast. I don't type very fast with one hand.
Okay, so now so the deliverables will be part of the goals. The rates, we're gonna need to do in the future, so I think we'll look at the rates and resolutions, associated with that. The other one that I've looked at is, I think I'm still trying to get an understanding from what's going on, and I didn't know sure that I understood if it was clear when the, acting attorney mentioned our rules or charter for this committee, so we don't have one. And so I think we've brought it up over the years and nothing's been brought back. Committee, my understanding is that the committee rule guidelines, what do we call it? The bylaws, thank you. The bylaws, were combined for all committees, but they were never taken out of draft. Do I understand that right? Do you know?
It sounds familiar, but I don't know for sure.
Okay, so I guess maybe that's the question we start with. Or is the bylaws for all committees the same, or are we supposed to have our own bylaws?
Okay.
And if so, can we see them? Because we've never seen bylaws for our committee. So we've run into a few snags over the time that should be, I guess, in bylaws that we don't have. So that might be something, I don't know if we want to put it on next time or just next year, but just somewhere in the future.
I would suggest adding it in the near future, but not for next meeting. We're already getting a substantial list.
No, I hear you. So, okay, and then so if Silver State is available, they will be in December. If not, then whenever their schedule is. And I guess that would even just be under the IRP as a sub thing too. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. So I guess then we have the public comment period. So we'll go to the last public comment period. So we'll close out item number 7 and go to the last public comment period, which anybody can discuss anything relevant to this committee. So again, the number is 702-589-9629. Okay, again, the number is for the last comment period is 702-589-9629. Okay, hearing no comments, then I will, see, this is a voting thing, so I will make a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So we were adjourned at 6:57.
Nothing in email.